Chapter 1903. Chaos Zone 11. Rumble. A terrifying roar resounded. 3 mighty forces slashed down, splitting the 9 mysterious universe into pieces. 3 of the pieces were grabbed by 3 huge palms and pulled in 3 different directions. At the edge of the Chaos Zone 11, Qin Feng saw a doomsday-like scene. 3 ancient existences at the second level of the Eternal Realm were attacking the 9 mysterious universe with all their might. The 9 mysterious sword ancestor had left the 9 mysterious universe. Most of the essence of the 9 mysterious universe had been swept away, leaving behind an empty shell. The 3 existences at the edge of the Chaos Zone 11 did not notice that Qin Feng was in their hands. Of the 3 existences, one of them was a terrifying monster. It was huge and had horns on its head. Its body was hidden in the boundless chaos, and its divine body was not much weaker than the ancient divine heavenly lords. In another direction was a middle-aged man in a gray robe. He looked like an ordinary mortal, but when he attacked there was a majestic aura, shattering the void. He was a martial Dao heavenly lord who had reached the peak of the martial Dao. With a wave of his hand, he could travel through space and shatter the void. In the direction close to Qin Feng, there was an ancient creature floating silently. It did not seem to have a physical body. It was a powerful race born in the gaps of space and time. With a single glance, Qin Feng recognized the origin of this living being. The Soul Race, one of the ancient races of the Chaos Zone. They were born in the gaps of space and time, shuttling between reality and the void. They were one of the ancient races of the Chaos Zone. They were born with the power of space and time rules and soul power. The 9 mysterious sword ancestor is decisive, but he is too hateful. He took away most of the essence of the 9 mysterious universe. I believe that if I had not come so quickly, he would not have left behind even 1/10 of the essence. Qin Feng was expressionless, but he felt pity in his heart. However, even if it is 1/10, it is still meat. I cannot waste it. Boom. Qin Feng released the aura of an eternal divine ancestor. Bang, bang, bang. Billions of miles of chaos shook, and the entire Chaos Zone 11 was shrouded in a suffocating aura. A divine ancestor is here? Not good. The 3 eternal lords of heaven, who were trying their best to divide up the remaining essence of the 9 mysteries universe, cried out in surprise. Almost like rabbits, they simultaneously chose to put down the 3 pieces of the 9 mysteries universe that they were dragging and shot out of Zone 11 like flowing light. Hidden in the depths of the primordial chaos, a group of ancient creatures had been waiting for the 3 eternal heavenly lords to finish their meal. Their eyes were filled with shock as they fled for their lives. Qin Feng stared at these existences with a contemplative look on his face. Every time an epoch of chaos changed, the sacred ancestors of the chaos would do the same thing at the same time. They killed the high-level beings of the chaos, purged the chaos creatures, and even devoured the living beings of the major worlds. There was only one purpose in doing so, and that was to seize the destiny after the great tribulation of the chaos epoch. The principle was straightforward. The rarer the chaos creatures were, the greater the amount of karmic luck the remaining existences would receive after the great tribulation of the chaos epoch. The eternal divine ancestors didn't care much for the karmic luck born in the various worlds, but they couldn't ignore the karmic luck in the endless void. It was an enormous resource, or what the sacred ancestors often referred to as the fortune after the great tribulation of the chaos epoch. After the great tribulation of the chaos epoch, some of the more powerful sacred ancestors would advance by leaps and bounds and overcome several tribulations in a row. Generally speaking, the more experts and worlds purged in the chaos, the more karmic luck one would receive after the great tribulation of the chaos epoch. Purging the chaos starts with me. Qin Feng's expression was indifferent. He opened the golden gourd and sucked in the 3 eternal heaven monarchs who were trying to escape. Sacred ancestor, we have no intention of making an enemy out of you. Sacred Ancestor, I am an expert of the Spiritas. Please, for the sake of the Spiritas, spare my life. This humble god will be deeply grateful. Two of the eternal heavenly lords were scared out of their wits and begged for mercy. The martial Tao heavenly lord was decisive. He clenched his fist and punched at Qin Feng. The chaos roared as the fist resonated with the primordial chaos and exploded. The Eternal Quake Secret Codex. It was a powerful eternal secret art. Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. The golden gourd swallowed the three of them. A bolt of purple lightning shot out of the gourd and reduced the giant devil heavenly lord and the Spiritas heavenly lord to dust. The primordial chaos sea surged, absorbing and assimilating the various heavenly lords' ki. Bam! 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 Suddenly, the primordial chaos in the primordial chaos sea exploded, and a terrifying martial artist appeared. A terrifying power vibrated around him, shattering the primordial chaos and blasting away the earth, water, wind, and fire. His attack power was not inferior to that of an ordinary sacred ancestor. It was the remaining martial Tao heavenly monarch. At this moment, he felt a huge suppression and frowned as he looked above his head. Outside, in the chaos, Qin Feng rubbed the golden gourd and sent a wisp of his divine consciousness into the eight scenery world. Rumble! Above the primordial chaos sea, countless primordial chaos swirled and formed a terrifying giant face. The martial Tao heavenly lord's expression changed slightly. Lightning Ancestor, let me out! You can't kill me. If you let me out now, I won't hold a grudge against you. Let me go. Let me go. At that moment, a terrifying voice shook a large area of the primordial chaos sea. The martial Tao heavenly lord looked over and saw a powerful force struggling in the center of the primordial chaos sea, causing countless primordial chaos vortexes to distort and change shape. However, it was firmly suppressed. Sacred Ancestor. It was a suppressed sacred ancestor. This sacred ancestor could suppress other sacred ancestors. At that moment, the martial Tao heavenly lord's heart sank. Qin Feng coldly scanned the struggling sacred ancestor Gu Kong with his divine consciousness. Then, he locked onto the martial Tao heavenly lord. Hand over the eternal vibration secret art, and I'll allow you to reincarnate in my world and cultivate the primordial chaos again. A cold voice appeared in the primordial chaos sea. The martial Tao heavenly lord looked up with a cold expression. The eternal vibration secret art was one of the 3,000 eternal secret art. It was a peerless secret art on par with the eternal lightning secret art. The eternal secret art was the most primordial supreme secret art in the chaos. Unlike secret arts like the myriad gourd world scroll, the 3,000 primordial secret arts were the foundation of all sorts of supreme secret art. Every primordial secret art he obtained was undoubtedly a huge improvement for the sacred ancestor. Chapter 1904. Of course, if you're not willing, I'll have to kill you. The cold voice came from above him again. Qin Feng was not threatening him. As eternal heaven monarchs, if they were unwilling to do so, no one would be able to force them. The martial Wei heaven lord frowned and thought. Although he was in a desperate situation, there was no anxiety, despair, or fear on his face. There was only rationality and weighing the pros and cons in his eyes. It's Yuanwu's honor to be an expert under the divine ancestor. The martial Wei heaven lord said. Forget it. A stream of invisible light flew out of his mouth and instantly disappeared into the sky. It touched the divine thought and turned into a special eternal Tao. It was the Eternal Vibration Secret Codex, ranked 2415th among the 3,000 primeval codices. The power of vibration shattered billions of chaos. This was a very powerful primeval codex. In the void, Qin Feng's divine thoughts were vibrating. Through this eternal secret of primeval, he had comprehended many principles. The eight scenes world in the golden gourd could not help but resonate with a high and low frequency, and countless impurities were removed. The Eight Scenes world, and even the primordial chaos sea in the center, had a more condensed limit. It was a small show of strength. When the martial Tao heavenly monarch saw this scene, his cold eyes shrunk. This was the eternal secret codex. For this secret codex, he had studied it for tens of thousands of years, and only reached the Deshang realm after millions of years of cultivation. The divine ancestor in front of him had touched the threshold with just a glance. The divine thought calmed down quickly, and the faint voice came again. Very good. When your original spirit reincarnates, there will be a great position for you in the Eight Scenes world. There may be hope for the divine ancestor's Tao. As the voice fell, the martial Wei Heaven Lord's true body gradually disappeared. His original spirit turned into an invisible stream of light and directly passed through the netherworld origin world into the billions of spirit domains under the spirit sea world. This heavenly lord reincarnated with memories, and was much stronger than Qin Feng. It would not be long before he washed away the martial Wei imprint and cultivated the divine Wei. With the experience of a heavenly lord, he would soon return to the position of a heavenly lord. In the outside world, Qin Feng withdrew his divine sense and stroked the golden gourd in his hand. His eyes sparkled. He looked at the broken Nine Mysteries universe. The golden gourd spewed out divine light, sweeping up a few fragments, as well as the empty shell of the Jiu Xianyuan continent, and bringing it into the Eight Scenery world. Although mosquitoes were small, they were still meat. Looking at the turbulent chaos around him, Qin Feng prepared to go into seclusion for a period of time. He would refine the ancient god world and the remnant body of the Nine Mysterious universe, turning them into his own strength. At the same time, he studied the second eternal secret codex. 10,000 years ago, the eternal thunder secret codex had already reached the realm of oneness of heaven and man. It just so happened that he could study the second eternal secret codex. He tossed the golden gourd. Rumble. Endless rays of light formed a rain of light that covered the entire 11th zone of chaos, attracting the gazes of many powerful beings in the surrounding chaos zones. An enormous world replaced the Nine Mysteries universe and appeared in the primal chaos 11th region. The rich world energy caused many powerful existences to raise their eyebrows. With a flash, Qin Feng turned into a stream of light and entered the Eight Scenery world formed by the golden gourd. Qin Feng entered a state of seclusion. Beside him, the divine ancestors in several chaos zones could not fall asleep. In this world, the most difficult thing to fall asleep was to have an evil neighbor. With such a powerful neighbor who was extremely aggressive, no one would be able to fall asleep. Almost at the same time that Qin Feng settled down, a temporary alliance was formed in the surrounding chaos zones. The chaos was turbulent, and 7,500 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the past 7,000 years, the signs of the great calamity of the chaos epoch had become more obvious. Many divine ancestors could already predict it. At most, in about 50,000 years, the great calamity of the chaos epoch would arrive. Except for the whirling sea in the center of the chaos zone, the other chaos zones around the chaos sea were in complete chaos. Killing was rampant, and the bloody aura of the great calamity floated in the boundless chaos like fog. Many worlds floated in the great calamity of killing, or were shattered into pieces, forever disappearing in the chaos. However, there were also exceptions. Some worlds with great providence gradually rose to prominence in this increasingly cruel battle, becoming the only giant worlds in the various regions of chaos. There were very few worlds that could grow to this stage. On the other hand, some primal chaos ancient clans and powerful divine ancestors presided over worlds that grew larger. Chaos Zone 11. After 7,000 years, the Eight Scenery world floated, nourished by the providence of the 11th, 10th, and 9th regions. It was astonishingly large. Multicolored light flowed, and a rain of light bloomed in the entire Chaos Zone 11. The grand scene was shocking. Rumble. The chaos was like a huge wave, forming a special region with alternating undercurrent. Occasionally, one could see worlds floating over, attracted and sent into the 8th scenery world. They were actively accepted and became part of the 8th scenery world. From time to time, powerful ancient beings would enter this region to observe. Some had evil intentions, and some chose to join directly. However, no one dared to take the initiative to become enemies. Although the Chaos Zone 11 was quiet and motionless, the phenomenon it emitted was too shocking. Moreover, the battles in the Chaos Zone 11 continued for thousands of years. As long as one wasn't reckless, they wouldn't take the initiative to find trouble. Within the 8th scenery world, Central Chaos Primordial Heaven Realm. On the primordial path, in front of the Genesis Shrine, 2 9-meter-tall ancient trees emitted astonishing multicolored light. The shrine was simple and unadorned. In the center, a figure sat cross-legged, like an unchanging rock. This figure sat cross-legged in the shrine, as if he had lost his life and hadn't moved for thousands of years. However, on this day, a formless ripple emerged from his body like a spring breeze, like ripples in a lake, invisibly sweeping the surroundings. Bang! 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 Around the primordial path, countless primordial energy came into contact with the formless ripple. Silently, large areas were turned into emptiness, extending for billions of miles. Eternal Vibration Secret Codex. In the depths of the primordial path, in a place where space-time was distorted like a spring, a majestic figure appeared. Sensing the commotion outside, Divine Ancestor Gu Kong opened his eyes expressionlessly, but there was a trace of silence in the depths of his eyes. 7,000 years ago, Divine Ancestor Gu Kong had seen with his own eyes how Qin Feng had coerced and bribed Heavenly Lord Yuanwu to obtain the Eternal Vibration Secret Codex. In just 7,000 years, he had cultivated the Eternal Vibration Secret Codex to perfection. In the Genesis Shrine, Qin Feng opened his eyes and looked at his palm. He opened his palm, and a formless ripple emerged. Eternal Vibration Power. Chapter 1905. What a powerful force! Just a little more and I'll be able to achieve the unity of heaven and man. Qin Feng stretched out his other hand, and a ball of purple lightning appeared in the air. It was silent, but it had the power to destroy chaos. The eternal true lightning. Once the eternal vibration force reaches the unity of heaven and man, I'll be able to combine the two eternal primeval secret scriptures. If I can reach this step, my battle prowess will increase by quite a bit. Also, the 9 heavens origin lightning god universal law incantation will be on the agenda. As he pondered, Qin Feng slowly dispersed the 2 balls of Yuanshi's eternal secret codex. His body shook, and there was a crackling sound around him as the eternal saint energy vibrated. The fatigue from thousands of years of seclusion was swept away. He appeared at the side of the Genesis Shrine. Hong Meng Island's surface area had increased significantly over the past 7,000 years. It wasn't just Hong Meng Island that had increased in size, but the entire primordial chaos sea had changed tremendously over the past 7,000 years. The primordial chaos sea had become larger and more solid, and it had a strange power within it. It also had a mysterious state of being invulnerable. This was the central primordial chaos heavenly realm. Other than the central primordial chaos heavenly realm, the 8 scenery worlds had also jumped from the central primordial chaos heavenly realm to the Deshang realm. The most powerful East scenery world and the Southeast scenery world were close to perfection. These 2 worlds had obtained the largest share of the spoils from the destruction of the ancient god world and the 9 mysterious universe. The 8 scenery world was like the 8 trigrams of yin and yang. With the central primordial chaos sea as the center, it seemed to be constantly rotating, and a strange power was being born along a mysterious path. The current Golden Gourd world was much stronger than it had been 7,000 years ago. If the Golden Gourd world had such an ability 7,000 years ago, the 9 mysterious sword ancestor wouldn't have been able to escape. The 8 scenery world has Deshang and is considering cultivating the second stage of the Universal Gourd World Scroll. Qin Feng's expression changed. The first stage of the Golden Gourd World was the 8 scenery world, and the central primordial chaos sea was born. The second stage of the eternal Vajra secret scripture was the Vajra strength. This allowed the Golden Gourd to possess a layer of indestructible Vajra strength, making it difficult for any mighty force to destroy it. The World Scroll of the Thousand Treasures Gourd was not only a supreme secret scroll for refining the world, but also a supreme secret scroll for refining the soul. In the imagination of the powerhouse who created the secret technique, there were a total of 10 levels. Other than the first level, every level had to condense a kind of primeval eternal power and use it as the foundation to build the supreme eternal true sage Tao heart. In the end, he would form an eternal truth and step into the path of the eternal true saint. Qin Feng had vaguely seen some records in the Immortal Net library. The reason why those eternal true sages were omnipotent and could move freely across dimensions was that they had mastered an immortal sacred law that allowed them to travel through countless dimensions. It was also known as the eternal truth. For example, the eternal true saint behind the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace, Hongjun Daoist, mastered the balanced truth and the balanced sacred law. Once he grasped this universal truth, Daoist Hongjun would never fall. However, Daoist Hongjun's eternal truth was composed of several kinds of primeval eternal power. This was unknown. According to Qin Feng's own guess, as long as the combination of the primeval eternal power and the secret scroll were flawless, and under the premise of safely passing through 9 perfect tribulations, it was possible to become an immortal and indestructible eternal true divine. Qin Feng had read the outlines of the last few levels of the World Scroll of the Thousand Treasures Gourd. Although he did not know the specific arrangement and combination of the primeval eternal power and the specific construction method, he was sure that the core primeval eternal power of the immortal Tao was indispensable. For example, the 3 core primeval eternal power of the primeval eternal power of the transcendent, order, and so on. This was because the immortal Tao focused on transcendent, and order belonged to the camp. In Qin Feng's plan, he was not going to copy the gourd. Instead, he was going to use this as a foundation to create his own method of proving the Tao with the color of the divine Tao. As for how many kinds of primeval eternal power were needed, how to combine them, and countless other complicated details, he had only deduced the first step. According to the records in the Immortal Net library, no matter which mighty person's method of proving the Tao, the first thing to consider is its characteristics. The immortal Tao focuses on transcendent, and free. There are only a few kinds of primeval eternal power that can be considered. It's either the eternal power of transcendent power, or the eternal power of Vajra that represents the immortality of Vajra, or the 5 elements, yin and yang and samsara. The rules of the divine Tao should focus on the origin, order, majesty, and the wishes of all living beings. I can first consider the eternal power of origin, eternal order, eternal divine power, eternal wish, and so on. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. The second level of the World Scroll of the Thousand Treasures Gourd is just a rough idea, but I'm sure that in the future, I will need these 3 kinds of primeval eternal power: origin, wish, order. The primeval eternal power is rare to begin with. If I were to search for it alone, even with the help of the divine path system of the heavens and realms, I'm afraid it would be difficult. I'm afraid that I would need the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace or other forces under the True Sage to be able to touch it. Just as well, I'll take advantage of this time to come out of seclusion and head to the dimension where the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace is located. Qin Feng looked solemn. For Eternal's forefather, the power of the primeval eternity might be an obstacle on his path to immortality, but it wasn't the biggest obstacle. Of course, it was not a perfect tribulation. Every perfect tribulation could make the divine ancestors perish, and they had to deal with it with 120% of their energy, but these were all visible dangers. There were always traces and ways to prepare. The most terrifying thing was the method of achieving the Tao. This was an invisible trap. Every divine ancestor had almost no role models on the road ahead. They could only cross the river by feeling the stones. Once there was a flaw in the method of achieving the Tao, they would go astray. In the end, they could only die or be reincarnated to wash away the wrong imprint in their original spirit and start over. There was only one chance. In the boundless void and the boundless chaos. In fact, there were so many universes and worlds. Although there were few divine ancestors, there were definitely some. Of the 10,000 divine ancestors, 99% of them fell in this stage. Only a few lucky ones could pass this stage and use the correct sequence of the primeval eternal power to finally condense the perfect eternal truth. Qin Feng walked out of the creation divine palace and appeared on the twin world trees in front of Hong Meng Island in a few steps. He gazed at the twin world trees. The twin world trees had gradually walked out of the mold of a world tree and were evolving into a tree of dimensions. Chapter 1906. The Tree of Dimension was one of the few supreme divine objects in the countless dimensions that could be compared to a doctrine artifact in value. The Tree of Dimension was rooted in dimensions, absorbing the power of dimensions and the void mother stream. It could easily open dimensional doors. The twin world trees had not yet become a tree of dimension, but they already had a trace of the great power of dimensions. The Phoenix consort Feng Yi had established a fast dimensional connection with the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace. Among them, the most important connection channel was through the power of the twin world trees. Under the countless roots of the twin world trees, there were many dimensional portals. Countless treasures and resources were transported to and from the Purple Heaven Heavenly Palace through the dimensional portals at all times. At the same time, it was also a material transfer station for the myriad worlds' divine path system in the countless dimensions and spacetimes. At the same time, countless spiritual materials and treasures were collected by the hosts of the myriad worlds' divine path system in the countless worlds and spacetimes and sent to the Spirit Sea world. The core of this transfer station was the damaged Tao artifact bronze altar. If not for this, it would be impossible for the 8 scenery world to build such a huge network with its current power. Qin Feng waved his sleeves and made a handprint. A golden light fell on the twin world trees. In an instant, a blue light appeared in front of the twin world trees, and a light blue dimensional door appeared. Whoosh, whoosh. An invisible light appeared on the other light golden branch of the twin world trees. A graceful figure flew out and landed on the ground. An incomparably graceful and beautiful woman appeared. Her appearance was fixed at around 30 years old. She was mature and charming, but with the dignity and majesty of a queen. She was tall and slender, and her figure leaned toward the plump type. She was different from the youthfulness of ordinary girls. She was like a ripe peach. She was a goddess. She exuded a strong aura of power. Divine power surged. The eternal God Emperor realm had completely stabilized. It seemed that he was moving toward the second eternal realm, the eternal Lord of Heaven. Your Majesty, are you going to the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace? Feng Yi looked at the dimensional door with a strange light in her eyes. As the master of the myriad worlds spacetime trading and the master of the southeastern heavenly realm, Feng Yi was the most sensitive to the power of spacetime. The moment she sensed the fluctuation of the spacetime dimension, she rushed over. As expected, Qin Feng had come out of seclusion, and it seemed that he was going to the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace. Feng Yi had always been in charge of the transactions between the Spirit Sea world and the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace, but she had never really been to the Yellow Heaven Immortal Palace. Spacetime travel could only be done with the protection of the Divine Ancestor. or with the protection of a doctrine artifact or supreme. For the time being, Feng Yi did not have the conditions to travel through the space-time dimension alone. Seeing Feng Yi look over, Qin Feng nodded slightly. Feng Yi's beautiful Feng's eyes Feng, your majesty, of heavens with you, I have always been curious about the auction house of the myriad heavens under the purple heaven immortal palace. Worlds heavenly immortal, heavens gates of heaven as deep within the dimensional door. So this is dimension travel? Feng Yi's delicate body leaned tightly into Qin Feng's embrace, her beautiful face somewhat pale. In the depths of the space-time dimensional gate, there was a huge pressure friction that separated space-time and ground the laws of heaven and earth. Feng Yi only felt that in such a storm, she was like an ant in a tornado that could be ground to dust at any time. Bang! 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 Outside the two of them, it was as if countless space-time had collapsed. A pale golden oval-shaped light shield enveloped the two of them as they shuttled through the dimensional storm. Qin Feng held Feng Yi's soft waist and smiled. Yellow Heaven Universe, 500th level of the Immortal Net, Heavenly Way Building. Purple light shot into the sky, and two streams of light flew down from the dimensional door. Many of the nervous immortal generals calmed down when they sensed the powerful and familiar aura. One of the immortal general's eyes flickered. Lord Ruler of the Three Qi, our esteemed guest has arrived. Several low-level immortal generals nodded and sent a message. Greetings, Ruler of Lightning. At this moment, the leading high-level immortal general had already stepped forward and bowed. Last time, the commotion caused by Qin Feng coming out of the Heavenly Way building was still fresh in this high-rank immortal general's memory. His gaze swept past Feng Yi, who was at the side, and a stunned expression flashed in his eyes before it turned into respect. This is the Central Yellow Court Immortal Domain under the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace. It feels so powerful. Feng Yi looked around, her beautiful eyes full of splendor. Sensing the immortal net formed by the laws of heaven and earth in the void, she was even more shocked. In the world of the Spirit Sea, the Spirit Sea Heavenly Court was also forming an inescapable net with laws. It was now connected to the All Heavens space-time trading network, but compared to the Immortal Net it was like a baby. The vastness and depth of the Immortal Net shocked her. Qin Feng glanced at the high-level Immortal General in front of him and waved him aside. This is the 500th level of the Immortal Net. Between the 500th level and the 600th level of the Immortal Net, every level of the Immortal Net is inhabited by experts of the Eternal God Emperor level and the Eternal Divine Ancestor level. After giving Feng Yi a brief introduction, Qin Feng said, "We are here to buy something this time. Let's go directly to the 500th level of the Immortal Net, the auction house of all heavens." The surprise on her face faded, but Feng Yi could not hide the curiosity in her beautiful eyes. She just nodded. The couple flew straight to the Immortal Kingdom where the auction house of all heavens was located. The sea of clouds beneath their feet was vast, and there were countless immortal realms. The immortal kingdoms emitted the glow of blessings, and there were countless grotto heavens. Many mighty figures released their powerful auras in the immortal kingdoms. Feng Yi was more and more shocked when she entered the Purple Heaven Immortal Kingdom for the first time. When she was in the world of the Spirit Sea, looking at the billions of gods, Feng Yi already felt that the Spirit Sea realm could be considered a powerful force in the chaos. After all, there were so many divine realms, spirit realms, and many divine Tao mighty figures. But now, what she saw in the Immortal Kingdom was shocking. There were countless mighty figures, immortal kings, immortal emperors, and eternal immortal emperors, who were comparable to the eternal God Emperor, were not rare either. Why didn't you inform me that you have come to the 500th level of the Immortal Net, Sovereign Lightning Ancestor? I could have been a good host. On the way, the two of them met Sovereign Trichi, who had hurried over. After exchanging some pleasantries, he bade farewell and headed to the auction house of all heavens. Sovereign Changfeng, who had already received the news, was already waiting in front of the auction house of all heavens. Chapter 1907. On the 500th level of the immortal net, the auction house of myriad worlds. Brother Lightning Ancestor, you're really getting stronger every day. At the door, Hegemon Everlasting Wind stared at the couple in surprise. His gaze was primarily focused on Qin Feng. With his powerful senses, he could clearly sense the changes in Qin Feng's strength. Ordinary people couldn't sense Qin Feng's aura, but experts of the same level could clearly sense that he was much stronger than he had been 10,000 years ago. It usually took hundreds of thousands or even millions of years for an eternal sacred ancestor to improve. Ruler Changfeng was shocked to see such a change in a mere 10 or 20,000 years. When he'd first met Qin Feng had only just ascended to become an eternal sacred ancestor. Now, he was indeed at the peak of the eternal sacred ancestor level. He wasn't too far away from becoming a high-level sovereign. This is... Hegemon Eternal Wind glanced at a beautiful goddess by Qin Feng's side. Brother Changfeng, you flatter me. Qin Feng's expression was calm as he introduced. This is my Dao partner, Feng Yi. She's also the person in charge of communicating with the auction house of myriad worlds in the Spirit Sea. Feng Yi nodded slightly at Ruler Changfeng when she saw this. The three exchanged some pleasantries, then stepped into the auction house of myriad worlds. Feng Yi wasn't just curious about the auction house of myriad worlds under the purple firmament immortal palace. She also had a few business deals to discuss with the auction house of myriad worlds. Ruler Changfeng sent his subordinates to receive them. He accompanied Qin Feng into the depths of the auction house of myriad worlds. Qin Feng directly stated the purpose of his visit. Brother Changfeng, is the Eternal Secret Codex for sale on the 500th level of the immortal net? Brother Lightning Ancestor, you've found the right place. It's impossible to buy the primeval Eternal Secret Codex anywhere else. Ruler Changfeng laughed as he walked. But the purple firmament immortal palace is different. Forget the primeval Eternal Secret Codex. Even Dao artifacts can be bought with enough immortal spirit points. Hegemon Gale's eyes were filled with pride and arrogance. Qin Feng's expression did not change, but he sighed inwardly. Yuanshir's Eternal Secret Codex was something that Eternal's forefathers would kill for in countless giant realms. At the very least, there were very few people who were lucky enough to master an Eternal Secret Codex. Qin Feng and the Martial Dao Heavenly Lord Yuanwu had both obtained the Eternal Secret Codex when they were at the Eternal Heavenly Lord realm. In fact, there were very few existences like Qin Feng and Yuanwu. Even in the huge dimensional great cosmoses there were very few of them. 1 in 100. In all fairness, any divine ancestor who obtained such an eternal secret tome would not easily hand it over. Not to mention taking out a deal. Only true saint forces like the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace could sell them. I've heard that Brother Lightning Ancestor also possesses a secret manuscript of eternity. Are you interested in selling it? Hegemon Gale turned to look at Qin Feng. As a true saint sect, it was easy for them to investigate an Eternal's divine ancestor, even though they were not in the same dimensional great cosmos. In the Whirling Sea dimensional great cosmos and the Yellow Court dimensional great cosmos, they also had their own sources of information. Qin Feng's origins were very clear. However, Ruler Changfeng did not know that Qin Feng had more than one Eternal Secret Codex. He had 2 Eternal Secret Codices. Ruler Changfeng's eyes were filled with eagerness. Every additional Eternal Secret Codex in the Myriad Realms auction house on the Immortal Net was a generous reward for the person in charge of the Myriad Realms auction house on the Immortal Net. Even Ruler Changfeng, who was an Immortal Dao ruler, was a little excited about these rewards. Brother Changfeng, could it be that the Eternal Lightning Secret Codex is not in the Immortal Net? Qin Feng looked at Hegemon Everwind with some surprise. Qin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Although the Eternal Secret Codex was rare, if the price was right, Qin Feng didn't mind selling it in exchange for a new Eternal Secret Codex. Ruler Changfeng shook his head repeatedly. What are you talking about, Lightning Ancestor? Primeval Eternal Secret Codices are extremely precious. Even though the Purple Firmament Immortal Palace is very influential and dominates many dimensional great cosmoses, we have only collected slightly more than 200 of them. Slightly more than 200. Qin Feng was stunned for a moment. His heart trembled violently. These true sage sects are really rich. Qin Feng was envious. However, he was also somewhat lucky. He was now one of the immortal Dao rulers under the Purple Firmament Immortal Palace, so he had a huge backer. As for the dimensional great cosmos that ruler Changfeng was talking about, Qin Feng had read about it in some records on the Immortal Net. After an expert became a divine ancestor, their perspective of the world would change. Every dimension was a dimensional great cosmos in the eyes of many divine ancestors. Dimensional great cosmoses contained many worlds, and a part of them was chaotic. For example, Qin Feng was born in a dimensional great cosmos. Many divine ancestors called it the Whirling Sea Dimensional Great Cosmos. The center of the Whirling Sea Dimensional Great Cosmos was an immortal perfect world. It was the center of the entire Whirling Sea Dimensional Great Cosmos. However, according to the information on the Immortal Net, True Sage Whirling Sea Dimensional Great Cosmos had just attained Tao. Less than 10 chaos epochs had passed. The Whirling Sea Dimensional Great Cosmos was dominated by the bloodline of this true sage. Therefore, it was not as strong as the Purple Firmament Immortal Palace. However, it was said that there were different levels of strength among true sages. The newly ascended true sage Whirling Sea was not as strong as a veteran true sage like Taoist Hongjun. Moreover, true sage Whirling Sea Dimensional Great Cosmos seemed to be consolidating her realm. All kinds of thoughts surged in Qin Feng's mind. Then, he heard ruler Changfeng laugh helplessly. The Purple Firmament Immortal Palace also has the secondary Eternal Secret Codices of the Eternal Secret Codices. However, you know the difference between a secondary Eternal Secret Codices and a true Eternal Secret Codices. Upon hearing this, Qin Feng woke up from his thoughts and nodded slightly. Qin Feng also had a secondary Eternal Secret Codices, the Seven Wonders Mysterious Light. It was a secondary Eternal Massacre Secret Codices. He had obtained it from the Colored Glaze Holy Lord's inheritance, the Myriad Worlds Massacre System. Qin Feng did not take long to cultivate this secondary Massacre Secret Codices. To be honest, the secondary Eternal Massacre Secret Codices were far inferior to the true Eternal Secret Codices. Qin Feng had once wanted to use this as a means of cultivation to comprehend the true Eternal Massacre Secret Codices. However, after several attempts, he could not break through. However, even a secondary Eternal Secret Codices were very powerful. In particular, if an Eternal Heaven Lord Realm expert mastered a secondary Eternal Secret Codices, he would have a lot of advantages among Heaven Lords of the same realm. Qin Feng had come to the auction house this time to buy a new Eternal Secret Codices for himself and comprehend the Eternal True Sage Tao. He also wanted to buy some secondary Eternal Secret Codices for the divine concubines that could assist in battle. Chapter 1908. As they talked, Qin Feng followed ruler Changfeng to the center of the auction house. There were many immortal palaces here, and countless immortals were hurrying in and out of each palace. Clearly, the auction house of the Myriad Realms was doing better than expected. The Immortal Net is everywhere now. Ordinary immortals can enter the Immortal Net with their divine consciousness and choose the treasures they need from the virtual auction house of the Myriad Realms set up there. Our auction house has signed contracts with various immortal kingdoms and many factions. As long as you buy something and pay extra for the transportation, someone will immediately deliver it to you in the shortest time possible. However, many immortals are very secretive. They don't trust their cultivation level and the things they buy. They'd rather make an extra trip. Ruler Chongfeng smiled as he led Qin Feng into a huge palace. Brother Lightning Ancestor, although you're not an expert from this great universe, the immortal net can already connect to other great universes. Next time, you can directly connect to the immortal net in your own great universe. We also have a fast dimensional service. It's extremely fast, but the transportation is slightly more expensive. After all, cross-dimensional transportation requires some special methods to do it well. As the introductions were made, the two of them walked into the palace. The palace was huge, like a giant's kingdom. Many immortal Tao experts exuded immense pressure. Ruler Chongfeng led Qin Feng into an independent room in the depths of the palace. Aren't you afraid of losing your goods during cross-dimensional transportation? Qin Feng looked around and asked casually. There are many dangerous things hidden in the dimensional gap. However, our immortal net has already matured to a certain extent several chaos eras ago. We've developed many cross-dimensional secret techniques and can already overcome this difficulty. Ruler Chongfeng continued. Of course, there are many high-level rulers wandering in the dimensional gap. However, no one dares to risk offending a true sage and intercept the goods of the Purple Firmament Immortal Palace. Dimensional universes were not intimately connected. Many of them were separated by terrifying dimensional gap. These dimensional gaps were extremely long. Some were as wide as a complete dimensional great cosmos. There were many terrifying existences living in them. For example, the monsters born in the dimensional gap, the eternal divine ancestor, and so on. Many Eternal's sacred ancestors had offended major factions and preferred to hide in the dimensional gap. Within the dimensional gap, time was chaotic. Even high-level sovereigns who were proficient in the Tao of Fate would find it difficult to determine the whereabouts of these sovereigns. In his impression, the Soul Race, one of the top 10 races in the dimensional great cosmos of the Whirling Sea, was a race that was born in the dimensional gap. As they spoke, Hegem and Gale arrived at the center of the room, atop a small, beautiful altar. The palace was resplendent in gold and jade. Amidst its magnificence, there was a hint of purity and majesty that belonged to the immortal Tao. There were many murals in the surroundings, and the murals were floating. It was like a fairyland. In front of the palace was an enormous mirror made of a special immortal material. It was square in shape and several meters wide. Hegemon Everlasting Wind waved his hand. A blue light as pure as water emerged. At the same time, Qin Feng felt that an invisible yet powerful force had locked onto him. Qin Feng instinctively tensed his muscles. Don't worry, this is a scan of the immortal net. It won't be a problem. Hegemon Everlasting Wind's voice sounded from the side. He smiled slightly and gestured for Qin Feng to relax. Upon hearing that, Qin Feng relaxed slightly. The invisible force circled around him and scanned him several times before quietly dissipating. Identity verification. Hegemon Lightning. Hometown. Dimensional Great Cosmos of the Whirling Sea. Status. Low-level sovereign of the immortal Tao under the Purple Firmament Immortal Palace. Hidden identity. Dimensional Great Cosmos of the Whirling Sea. Fifth disciple of a true sage. Verification passed. Esteemed Hegemon Lightning, welcome to the Immortal Net Myriad World Auction House. The 500th floor of the Immortal Net Myriad World Auction House is at your service. Please select the category you need. An invisible wave suddenly appeared in the air, turning into a gentle and pleasant female voice. Immortal Net, please directly lock onto the Eternal Secret Technique. Display the price, characteristics, and degree of completeness, Hegemon Everlasting Wind said in a low voice. At the same time, Hegemon Everlasting Wind turned around and looked at Qin Feng. Brother Lightning Ancestor, please tell us one or several secret manuals that you need. The Immortal Net will help you search for them. There's such a high-level search function. Qin Feng was slightly surprised in his heart and said in an instant, "Please prioritize the data of the 3 eternal secret techniques: origin, wish, and order." After a slight pause, Qin Feng continued, "And the eternal sealing God's secret technique." The eternal sealing God's secret technique was a unique and primeval eternal secret technique. It was rumored that among the many dimensional great cosmoses, there were some unique dimensional great cosmoses where innate divine Tao laws were born. They formed the most primeval eternal sealing God's secret technique. This was the origin of the divine Tao in many dimensional great cosmoses. As soon as he finished speaking, streams of light flew across the transparent screen in the center. In an instant, the results were out. 2 results. Hegemon Everlasting Wind's expression changed, and he looked at Qin Feng with a smile. "Hegemon Lightning, it seems like you're in luck. Among the more than 200 eternal secret techniques under the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace, you happen to need 2. Qin Feng's eyes lit up as he looked at the 2 results. Pale golden light flowed and shone brightly. Eternal Origin Secret Technique, ranked 9th among the 3,000 eternal secret technique. Divine ancestors who cultivated this secret technique had the most sacred power. Selling price on the Immortal Net, 3 billion immortal spirit points. Eternal Order Secret Technique, ranked 57th among the 3,000 eternal secret technique. This secret technique was the most sacred. Divine ancestors who cultivated this technique had the innate ability to suppress the divine ancestors, immortal path, divine path, spirit path, divine ancestor, etc., who were inclined toward the order sacred realm. Selling price on the Immortal Net, 3 billion immortal spirit points. 3 billion 3 billion, the various introductions made Qin Feng's eyes light up. However, when he saw the prices at the end, Qin Feng's expression turned serious. 2 eternal secret techniques would cost 3 billion immortal spirit points. Last time, he had bought 2 sovereign secret techniques for only about 600 million immortal spirit points. Apart from the other 2 eternal secret techniques displayed, the information for the other 2 secret techniques was also displayed. Eternal Wish Secret Technique, ranked 4th among the 3,000 eternal secret technique. It collected the wishes of all living beings and spirit. It had the supreme power to turn something rotten into something magical. Dreams could come true, and it was not an illusion. The price was 4 billion immortal spirit points, and the status displayed was none. Eternal Sealing God's Secret Technique, ranked 192th among the 3,000 eternal secret technique. It was the origin of the divine Tao and the beginning of the divine Tao. It could suppress all secret techniques of the divine Tao. The price was 1.8 billion immortal spirit points, and the status displayed was none. Chapter 1909. Qin Feng felt a tinge of regret. Of the 4 eternal secret codices, the one Qin Feng wanted the most was the Eternal Wish Art. As the 4th-ranked Eternal Secret Codex among the 3,000 Eternal Secret Codices, it was extremely powerful. It was even more wondrous than Qin Feng's Universal Gourd World Scroll. Moreover, it was widely acknowledged that the Eternal Wish Art was the most powerful way to use the path of faith. The divine Tao emphasized order and nurtured all life, so it interacted with the power of faith almost every day. If he could obtain the Eternal Wish Art, the strength of the divine Tao in the Spirit Sea would greatly improve. But even without the Eternal Wish Art, there's still the Eternal Origin Technique. Qin Feng's eyes lit up with joy. The Eternal Origin Technique was ranked 9th among the 3,000 Eternal Secret Codices. It could be divided into 9 secondary Eternal Secret Techniques, and was said to be the most powerful among all origins. Origins were the divine power of true gods, the immortal power of immortals, the demonic chi of demonic Tao cultivators, and the 3 treasures of martial Tao cultivators. Mountains and rivers had origins, oceans had origins, skies had origins, Heaven and earth had origins. Powerful worlds had origins. Once he mastered this technique, the entire world would be under his control, and he would be extremely powerful. If Qin Feng mastered it, his power would increase by more than 100 times. Although the Eternal Origin technique wasn't as helpful as the Eternal Wish Art or the Divine Tao, it was no less than the Eternal Wish Art for Qin Feng. But the price? In the blink of an eye, Qin Feng suddenly felt a headache. 2 Eternal Secret Codices for 5.3 billion. Was it expensive? Compared to the 2 Eternal Secret Codices, it wasn't expensive at all. After all, the Eternal Sacred Ancestor would never doubt the Eternal Secret Codices. But I only have about 1.5 billion points. The Phoenix Consort has given me all the profits from the 10,000 years of cross-border trade, but, Qin Feng thought to himself, a wry smile tugging at his lips. He'd been quite confident with 1.5 billion points, but now he realized that he was nothing but a pauper in front of these Eternal Secret Codices. Off to the side, He Gale stared at Qin Feng. When he saw the look on Qin Feng's face, he couldn't help but chuckle to himself. The transactions between the Spirit Sea Realm and the Myriad Realms Auction House had always been hosted by the Myriad Realms Auction House on the 500th level of the Immortal Net. Therefore, ruler Changfeng naturally had an estimate of the wealth of the Spirit Sea Realm. In 10,000 years, he had earned more than 1 billion immortal spirit points. Generally speaking, this speed was unsatisfactory. Many dominators of the immortal path from the last era on the Immortal Net probably had the same net worth. However, compared to some of the veteran dimensional proxy forces under the Immortal Net, this number was undoubtedly not enough. However, He Gale didn't underestimate him. Taoist Changfeng, I want to sell 2 copies of the Eternity Secret Codex. I wonder if the Immortal Net can give me an estimate in advance. Qin Feng suddenly looked over at Imperial Lord Galewind. 2 Eternal Secret Codices? He Gale's eyes lit up. Of course. He Everlasting Wind said with a puzzled look on his face. However, as far as I know, you only have 1 copy of the Eternal Thunderbolt, right? He Galewind asked fervently. If 2 new Eternal Secret Codices appeared on the 500th level of the Immortal Net, he would reap unimaginable benefit. Qin Feng shook his head. And the Eternal Quake Secret Codex? The Eternal Quake Secret Codex? He Galewind was stunned. Then, a bitter smile appeared in his eyes. Taoist Lightning Ancestor, I'm afraid the Eternal Quake Secret Codex can't be sold on the Immortal Net. He Galewind shook his head when he met Qin Feng's gaze. The Eternal Quake Secret Codex already exists on the Immortal Net. He Galewind casually pointed at the screen in the center. Silently, a stream of information transformed into a golden light that could be seen with the naked eye. The Eternal Quake Secret Codex was ranked 1,828th among the 3,000 Eternal Secret Codices. Price, 800 million immortal spirit points. There's already one. A trace of helplessness flashed through Qin Feng's heart. After a moment of thought, he sighed. Then let's sell the Eternal Lightning Secret Codex. As he spoke, he extended a hand. A bolt of purple lightning appeared in his palm and transformed into a ball of purple lightning that vaguely resembled a giant egg. The egg was covered in countless lightning patterns. This was the Eternal Lightning Secret Codex. Qin Feng had comprehended all of the Eternal Lightning's mysteries from the stone egg all those years ago. If the lightning egg were to escape from the Immortal Net and fall into the void, it wouldn't take long for it to hatch into the stone egg that Qin Feng had obtained back then. He Galewind's fervent gaze transformed into a smile when he saw the lightning egg. He looked at Qin Feng with an even more amiable expression. Immortal Net, scan the Eternal Secret Codex to see if it's complete and give me a price as a reference. As soon as He Galewind finished speaking. Buzz buzz buzz. Qin Feng inclined his head and stared over. In the air, a formless yet majestic aura swept over. It was the same as the identity verification from before. Qin Feng felt that even an eternal divine ancestor like him was like an ant in the face of this powerful aura. The immortal net's power was beyond imagination. He was certain that if the immortal net wanted to kill a low-level sovereign, it could do so in an instant. Ding. Scan complete. Eternal Lightning Secret Codex, ranked 99th in the Eternal Secret Codex. Degree of completeness, perfect. Price, 1.6 billion immortal spirit points. Perfect? Hegemon Galewind heaved a sigh of relief when he saw these words. Most eternal secret codices that were put up for auction on the immortal net were divided into two categories: incomplete and perfect. Incomplete secret codices had different degrees of fragmentation. The greater the degree of fragmentation, the lower the price. The difference in value between an incomplete Eternal Secret Codex and a perfect Eternal Secret Codex was huge. Generally speaking, although an incomplete Eternal Secret Codex could be cultivated to the eternal great perfection realm and the final stage of becoming one with the world, it would take 10 times or even 100 times more effort than a perfect Eternal Secret Codex. Moreover, once the quality of the incomplete Eternal Secret Codex exceeded 50%, it would degenerate into an ordinary second-level Eternal Secret technique. As for the price of 1.6 billion immortal spirit points, this was not beyond Hegemon Galewind's expectations. The top 10, top 30, top 100, and top 300 Eternal Secret Codices were obviously not of the same price. Brother, do you want to sell it directly? Hegemon Galewind smiled at Qin Feng. Let's sell it directly. Looking at the eternal thunder egg in his hand, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of a sigh. From today onwards, it wouldn't be long before many beings in the multidimensional great cosmos mastered the eternal lightning technique. As soon as he said that, a faint golden light appeared in the void and enveloped the eternal lightning egg in midair. It disappeared in an instant. At the same time, many golden lotuses appeared in the void. Heavenly flowers rained down and an auspicious aura filled the air. Congratulations, Hegemon Lightning Ancestor, for selling the Eternal Lightning Secret Codex. Identity verification. You have the authority of a low-level Hegemon on the immortal net and are exempt from tax. 1.6 billion immortal spirit points have been transferred to your account. Your account balance is 3.1 billion immortal spirit points. Please check your account balance. An incomparably beautiful voice appeared in Qin Feng's mind. Qin Feng realized that Hegemon Galewind, who was beside him, did not notice the existence of this voice. Qin Feng's eyes flashed as he gritted his teeth and said in his mind, "Immortal spirit points will be deducted from my immortal net account if I purchase the Eternal Origin Technique." Chapter 1910. Scanning. Available balance in your account, 3.1 billion. Identity verified. Purchase conditions met. Please sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Lord. Amidst the pleasant female voice, a golden light shot out from the screen and landed in front of Qin Feng's chest, turning into a golden scroll. The Non-Proliferation Treaty was a contract born to protect the interests of the Myriad Realms auction house. The main content was that the buyer could not spread any of the secret techniques they had purchased. If they violated this, the immortal net had the right to pursue and punish them. The punishment was extremely severe. As long as the buyer did not spread the secret techniques they had purchased, this contract was like a piece of paper. Simply put, it was to prevent the buyer from selling the knowledge they had obtained from the immortal net a second or third time. Qin Feng already knew the rules. He condensed his eternal sage power into a brand and placed it on the golden scroll contract. In an instant, the contract turned into light and disappeared. Contract signed. Deducting immortal spirit points. The female voice sounded again. Qin Feng could clearly sense that the immortal spirit points in his immortal net account were rapidly being deducted. In the end, only a little more than 100 million immortal spirit points were left. The deduction has ended. The total immortal spirit points deducted this time is 3 billion immortal spirit points. The account balance is 157,690,000 immortal spirit points. The secret technique will be issued. The ethereal female voice disappeared in the hall. Swoosh! A faint golden brilliance wrapped around a 9-colored sun flew out and landed in front of Qin Feng. An extremely mysterious rhythm fluctuated slightly from the 9-colored sun, bringing with it a primeval and eternal power. The Eternal Origin Technique. Qin Feng's eyes lit up. Next to him, the Eternal Wind Ruler also woke up from the joy of completing the transaction. He had also received a notification from the Immortal Net and a letter of commendation from the upper echelons of the Myriad Realms auction house. The rewards were rich. In addition to a sizable sum of immortal spirit points, there were also various upgrades to his authority. Looking at the Eternal Origin Technique, the Eternal Wind Ruler's eyes dimmed, and a trace of envy flashed across them. An Eternal Origin Technique worth 3 billion immortal spirit points. Even high-level sovereigns could not afford it. As rich as he was, unless he went bankrupt, he wouldn't be able to afford an Eternal Secret Tome that ranked in the top 10. The 9-colored sun stopped in the void and trembled slightly. In the next moment, as a hand reached into it, the 9-colored sun turned into 9-colored light that flowed through the hand and turned into a grand vortex that entered Qin Feng's body. At the same time, countless mysterious information surged into the depths of his soul. There were countless mysteries related to Eternal Origin Technique. Qin Feng couldn't help but want to immerse himself and cultivate here. But Qin Feng put an end to this idea. Firstly, it was inconvenient here. Secondly, the Eternal Vibration Secret Codex that he had cultivated had not reached the 6th level of the union of heaven and man. If he were to cultivate the 3rd level of the Eternal Secret Codex, there might be a conflict. After purchasing the Eternal Origin Technique, although Qin Feng coveted the Eternal Order Secret Codex, he had no choice but to give it up. With the remaining 150 million celestial spirit points, Qin Feng bought a few secondary Eternal Secret Techniques. These secondary Eternal Secret Techniques were worth 40 million to 80 million celestial spirit points. Qin Feng chose 3. They were the secondary Eternal Scales, the secondary Eternal Blood Source, and the secondary Eternal Lunar Divine Ability. The secondary Eternal Trade Origin Technique was for Feng Yi. Feng Yi mainly cultivated the laws of time, space, and trade. She had created the Connate Trade Origin Technique. The Connate Trade Origin Technique and the Scales Origin Technique complemented each other. The secondary Eternal Blood Origin Technique was for Red Lotus. She mainly cultivated the laws of Tai Chi, good and evil, and blood. She was a natural blood fiend and focused on the Tao of blood. As for the secondary Eternal Yin, it was to compensate Queen Silvermoon. This divine consort had given birth to Qin Feng's only 2 sons. All along, Qin Feng's attitude towards her had been normal. This technique was to compensate her and win her heart. He left the hall and bid farewell to Ruler Eternal Wind. After waiting at the door for a while, he saw Feng Yi walk out of the Myriad Worlds ranking tower. Feng Yi immediately saw Qin Feng at the door. Her eyes lit up as she walked over. "Your Majesty, you have already," she didn't finish her sentence, but Qin Feng already understood what she meant. He nodded slightly and asked, "You seem to be in a good mood. Something good must have happened." Feng Yi's eyes rippled when she heard this. She smiled faintly and said, "You really can't hide anything from me." "I really can't hide anything from you. I've indeed gained a lot this time. Not only have I revised the agency contract we signed, I've also won many rights that are beneficial to my Spirit Sea world. There are more than 170 rights in total. We originally set nearly 500 conditions. Although we only passed 1/3 of them, the benefits to my Spirit Sea world have greatly increased. It's much more than I expected. Qin Feng didn't pay much attention to the various conditions and rites in the spirit sea world. However, he was happy for Feng Yi when he saw her beautiful face. After leaving the Myriad Worlds auction tower, the two of them didn't immediately leave the Yellow Court Dimension Great Cosmos. To be honest, this was a rare opportunity for Qin Feng and Feng Yi to be alone. Qin Feng took the opportunity to bring Feng Yi to experience the local customs of the Yellow Court Dimension Great Cosmos. There were many unique trading methods in the Yellow Court Dimension Great Cosmos. To Feng Yi, who was in charge of trading and wealth, there were many benefits. Besides broadening her horizons, she also gained many new insight. 10 years later, the two of them left the Yellow Court Dimension Great Cosmos through the dimensional door. Chaos Zone 11. The majestic spirit sea world floated within. It occupied more than 90% of the territory in the Chaos Zone 11 and was still expanding. There were 8 heavenly realms in the spirit sea world. Within each heavenly realm, there were countless almighties of the supreme Tao. They resided in huge deity domains and spirit regions. It was like a nebula. Thanks to the luck from the 9th, 10th, and 11th zones of chaos, as well as the swallowing of the remains of the ancient God world and the 9 mysterious universe, over the past 10,000 years, batches of almighty gods had emerged in the spirit sea. The masters of the spirit regions, deity domains, and even the masters of the 8 heavenly realms had greatly increased their strength. The glorious divine Tao civilization was beginning to take shape. On the floating island in the primordial sea, Feng Yi returned to the celestial spacetime trading space after returning from the dimensional door. She couldn't wait to experiment with some new ideas regarding the celestial spacetime trading space. Creation Shrine. After passing the purchased secondary eternal divine powers to the divine concubines, Qin Feng couldn't wait to start his seclusion. He was prepared to completely cultivate the eternal oscillation secret technique to the unity of heaven and man realm. At the same time, he was also prepared to cultivate the eternal origin secret technique. Chapter 1911. 1,000 years later. With the creation shrine as the center, an invisible wave of energy spread out from the creation shrine, filling the primordial chaos sea, the 8 sceneries world, countless divine realms, and countless spirit realms. Under this invisible wave of energy, the countless god realms and spirit realms of the 8 scenery world seemed to be chained together like pieces of refined iron and hammered together with a giant hammer. Wave after wave of invisible force tempered the 8 sceneries world. Only 7 or 8 top-tier divine realm experts in the 8 sceneries world sensed this change. Other than the veteran eternal god emperors, most of them were lords of heavenly realms who had just become eternal god emperors in the past 10,000 years. It looks like my husband has finally made a step forward. In a powerful world nurtured by the moon, a peerless goddess in silver clothes and white hair looked in the direction of the creation shrine when she sensed the ripple. This cold and elegant goddess was extremely beautiful, but there was a chilling intent that could freeze the world around her. Her expression changed slightly, and a crescent moon flew out from her body, illuminating billions of worlds. The divine realms, spirit realms, and billions of gods were shocked. The Queen of Silver Moon had already mastered the secondary eternal tying divine art. This divine art was compatible with her tying laws and greatly increased her combat strength. She had reached the eternal soul realm and become the only eternal god emperor in the spirit sea world. Such power! The gap between me and His Majesty is greater than I imagined. In the other top realms, the eternal god emperors were awakened by this formless ripple, and they all looked toward the Genesis shrine. Some of the eternal god emperors were even more shocked. They felt that the invisible ripple was enough to shake out the true spirits they had entrusted to the void and the laws of heaven and earth. It was truly domineering. Thousands of years ago, I heard that His Majesty obtained the eternal Quake secret codex. This time, he must have cultivated it to the 6th level of one with the world. How enviable! In the northeast heavenly realm, hundreds of millions of galaxies surrounded a huge purple star in the center. Primordial purple chi lingered around it. A gray-robed Taoist also felt the invisible vibration and was indescribably shocked. This is the power of the eternal divine ancestor. How terrifying! Hongmeng Taoist thought to himself. Even though I'm the lord of the northeast heavenly realm and have the eternal primordial secret codex, I'm still like an ant in front of such power. It's as if I can crush millions of worlds with a single thought. That's right, I heard that the center of the 8th scenery world has opened up a large area of primordial chaos under the leadership of His Majesty. The primordial energy is abundant. I wonder if I can cultivate there. If I can cultivate in the primordial sea, I think my eternal primordial secret tome should be able to reach the unity of heaven and man stage in the shortest time possible. I might even be able to break through to the eternal river stage. Primordial Chaos Taoist's eyes were filled with longing. His Taoist title was Hongmeng, and he was the first Taoist in the Spirit Sea world. He also had a great opportunity. The eternal primordial chaos secret codex accompanied him in his transformation. His abilities were immeasurable, but compared to some of the top eternal existences, there was still a big gap. This was the biggest drawback of being a loose cultivator. Even if he was talented, without the guidance of a teacher or the backing of a powerful force, he would have to put in 10 times or even 100 times more effort than the disciples of a powerful force to achieve the same level of success. Hongmeng Taoist could no longer sit still and rushed to the center of the primordial chaos sea. In the Genesis Divine Palace, Qin Feng made a hand seal and a special wave of energy flew out from his body. His eyes were fixed on the changing golden gourd in the Spirit Sea world. With the power of the eternal vibrations, he resonated with the world again and again. After cultivating the eternal vibrations secret codex, Qin Feng realized that there were still many hidden dangers and inconsistencies among the various divine realms and spirit realms in the 8th scenery world inside the Golden Gourd. By using the eternal vibrations secret codex and coordinating with the various worlds, the power of the Golden Gourd could be further enhanced. This kind of invisible ripple swept across the countless divine realms and spirit realms of the Spirit Sea realm. It lasted for 100 years until Qin Feng sensed a perfect and flawless aura being born in the depths of the Spirit Sea realm transformed by the Golden Gourd. Only then did it slowly stop. At this time, in Qin Feng's senses, the Golden Gourd had turned into an extremely harmonious and perfect world. Many flaws were fixed and it was like a piece of divine metal that was a whole. It was not a thing that was gathered together by a plate of loose sand and full of flaws. Qin Feng looked at this scene with a smile on his face and thought to himself, the Eternal Vibrations Secret Codex is not the best in terms of lethality and auxiliary ability. But it is undeniable that this Eternal Secret Codex is incredibly useful for both myself and the world. After cultivating this eternal secret technique, whether it's my saint body or my soul, it seems to have been tempered countless times. Although I can't say that I've reached the immortal realm, it's undoubtedly much stronger than before. Thinking of the effects of the Eternal Vibrations Secret Codex and the other Eternal Secret Codex in his mind, Qin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. The Eternal Origin Technique was ranked 9th among the 3,000 Eternal Secret Codices. Once cultivated, it would be more powerful than the Eternal Thunderbolt Secret Codex and the Eternal Vibrations Secret Codex. After cultivating 2 Eternal Secret Codices and the Golden Gourd, Qin Feng could definitely be considered an eternal divine ancestor. Although he was not the strongest person below the One Tribulation Immortal Lord, his strength was definitely not comparable to those who had just become divine ancestors. If he cultivated the Eternal Origin Technique, Qin Feng was confident that his battle strength would be comparable to that of a One Tribulation Immortal Lord. Qin Feng suppressed the urge to immediately go into seclusion and cultivate the eternal origin technique. Crackle, crackle, crackle. Countless auras spread around him and cleared away the dense primordial chaos qi that had entered the creation divine palace around the primordial chaos sea. Pucci. His figure flashed and appeared in front of the twin world trees. At a glance, beside the island, the primordial chaos sea formed a boundless liquid primordial chaos qi. From here, Qin Feng seemed to be able to see more than half of the world of the spirit sea. Countless divine realms, countless spiritual realms, and countless scenes of the human world were reflected in the primordial chaos sea. This was one of the mysterious uses of the primordial chaos sea. With a wave of his sleeve, an invisible stream of light swept across the primordial chaos sea and opened up a path. A moment later, a gray-robed figure emerged from it. "Your Majesty!" Primordial Chaos Taoist bowed respectfully. Qin Feng nodded slightly. He more or less knew the purpose of Primordial Chaos Taoist's visit. Just as he was about to speak, Primordial Chaos Taoist saw Qin Feng suddenly raise his head and look outside the 11th zone. Boom! A sudden change occurred. Chapter 1912. Boom! Outside the 11th zone of chaos, waves of energy swept across the entire zone, making even the eternal sacred ancestors tremble. A beam of divine light shot toward the spirit sea from afar. Enemies are attacking. Sensing the fluctuations brought about by the terrifying divine light, the huge world of the spirit sea became extremely agile. In a flash, it shrank and turned into a golden gourd, which appeared in the hands of a figure. Whoosh! Silently, Qin Feng transformed into a beam of light, attempting to leave this place. Eternal freeze. At this moment, in an instant, a figure appeared soundlessly outside the 11th region of chaos. She seemed to have been prepared for this. She was the second eternal sacred ancestor. With a point of her finger, a beam of soul-chilling light shot toward Qin Feng. The Eternal Freeze was one of the 3,000 eternal secret techniques, ranked around 270. Eternal Freeze froze all laws of heaven and earth. It possessed unparalleled power. In the direction of the 11th and 10th zones, another blurry, illusory, and terrifying energy wave appeared. It appeared on its own, and a pair of terrifying dark gray eyes stared at Qin Feng. That was the third eternal sacred ancestor. It possessed a power that could make all things sink into its depths. Nirvana Grand Art. It quickly formed a hand seal, as if it had been prepared. At the same time, it unleashed a shocking technique. The gray light seemed to cover the entire 11th zone of chaos. This was a trap with a mission. The three eternal sacred ancestors had set this trap together. They had used the divine light as bait. If Qin Feng didn't withdraw the Spirit Sea, the world of the Spirit Sea created by the Golden Gourd would be injured by the divine light. It would bleed profusely and weaken the Golden Gourd's power temporarily. Once the gourd was withdrawn, the other two sacred ancestors would launch a sneak attack at the same time. All three parties had made their moves. Regardless of which side's method he was struck by, Qin Feng would fall into an absolute disadvantage and might even be defeated directly. In that moment, Qin Feng was extremely calm. Qin Feng felt a chill in his heart. There was no doubt that the three forces were extraordinarily powerful. They were more powerful than the average new sacred ancestor. The three eternal forefathers must have planned this out many times, taking into account all of his reactions. According to his strength 10,000 years ago, when he had just cultivated the Golden Gourd world, he was almost powerless to resist such a sneak attack. He would be directly defeated by a series of fierce attacks. However, after mastering the Eternal Oscillation technique, Qin Feng's strength had undergone a huge change. This kind of change, in this kind of situation, was enough to turn the tide of the battle around. Kill! In a flash, Qin Feng seemed to become one with the golden gourd hanging from his waist. He transformed into a bolt of lightning that hurtled toward the Spirita's forefather in the 10th zone of chaos. The golden gourd was incomparably powerful. A thick layer of flowing light flowed around it. This was the blessing of the eternal vibration technique. It seemed to resonate with the primal chaos and instantly broke through the secret technique of the Spirita's divine ancestor. I can't believe. The soul race's divine ancestor's expression changed drastically. His eyes turned extremely terrifying. Not good. His strength has far exceeded our expectations. He has already reached the peak before the first tribulation. Stop him. The other two forefathers' expressions turned extremely unsightly. They manipulated their techniques and charged forward in an attempt to catch up and rescue the Spirita's divine ancestor by surrounding him. The golden gourd's eternal oscillation technique was invincible. The black light was shattered, and the golden gourd smashed into the Spirita's forefather's true body. The golden gourd contained an entire spirit sea world. Its power was simply unfathomable. A vast explosion shook the chaos for billions of miles. Amidst the golden light, the Spirita's forefather's body shattered. The moment the golden gourd smashed into him, his entire soul and will were pulverized. As the gourd shattered, the 10th zone of chaos, as turbid as a spider web, was engulfed in a boundless storm. The Spirita's forefather hadn't been killed, but it would take him several hundred breaths to recover from this degree of injury. After destroying the Spirita's true body, a pair of eyes seemed to appear on the golden gourd. Looking at the two terrifying beams of divine light behind him, the eyes sneered. The golden gourd shook and shattered a large patch of spacetime. The gourd vanished on the spot. This is bad. The other two forefathers' expressions changed. Their attacks had followed Qin Feng, the lightning forefather. Now that the lightning forefather was gone, the only one left was the Spirita's forefather, whose true body had been destroyed. His soul and will were scattered all over the 10th zone, unable to move. Once their attacks landed, it would be a huge mistake. Almost at the same time, the two forefathers halted their attacks. Although the two forefathers were as powerful as the forefathers, they still expended a lot of soul and will to forcefully withdraw their full-force attacks. The two forefathers stood still in the void, looking grimly at the empty 11th zone and the shattered 10th zone. One of them held a beam of divine light in his hand. It was a treasure in the shape of a spirit pearl, glowing with majestic light in the palm of his hand. The forefather also seemed to be a forefather who walked the path of the world. His attack style wasn't much different from Qin Feng's. He'd refined his own world into a world pearl. The world pearl possessed a strange power. The other forefather was a woman in black. Cold currents of the ancient netherworld swirled around her, and her attack style leaned toward the Tao of Arts. The two forefathers' gazes shifted. At this moment, Qin Feng's figure had completely disappeared. The two of them had an intuition that Qin Feng must be hiding somewhere in the dark. "Come out, lightning forefather. You can't kill the two of us." The forefather's voice was warm and gentle, as if he were a long-lost friend. "Your cultivation level is beyond our expectations, but you're still not strong enough to take on 3 forefathers at once. Even if you took us by surprise and destroyed one of our true bodies, you can still take your world away from us. Forefather Soul Dream of the 8th zone, Forefather Ancient Deep of the 12th zone, and Forefather Flowing Light of the 7th zone. Don't you think so?" Qin Feng's figure silently appeared above the shattered and turbid chaos zone 10. Billions of purple lightning flashed around him, filling the entire chaos zone 10. "Ah, lightning forefather!" An extremely mournful scream rang out from the depths of the 10th zone, reverberating through a large area. The continuous scream sent chills down one's spine. It was the Forefather Soul Dream's scream. The eternal forefathers were immortal in their own universe, but the pain of having their souls obliterated by the purple lightning was absolutely unbearable. A portal of light appeared next to Qin Feng. It was a dimensional gate that was madly devouring the forefather Soul Dream's soul, forcibly sucking it in and banishing it to another dimension. Qin Feng faced the two forefathers expressionlessly, but he felt a little regretful. His cultivation wasn't strong enough after all. If he'd taken another step forward, he could have torn through dimensions and captured these forefathers, sending them directly to another dimension to be killed. Chapter 1913. Seeing Sacred Ancestor Dreamsowl's miserable state, Sacred Ancestor Deep Epic and Sacred Ancestor Flowing Light's faces remained indifferent. However, Qin Feng was right. Although Qin Feng couldn't suppress them, the 12th, 7th, and even Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream's 8th district wouldn't be able to escape from the Lightning Ancestor. The two Sacred Ancestors were weighing the pros and cons. Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream had been severely injured. Most of her soul had been sent to the alternate dimension Great Cosmos by the dimensional door that the Lightning Ancestor had opened. This was a common way to deal with a Sacred Ancestor of the same level. The Eternal Sacred Ancestor was indestructible, but if he was torn apart and sent into the alternate dimension Great Cosmos or the alternate dimension Great Cosmos, he wouldn't be able to resist for a short time even if he didn't die. Not only did the Lightning Ancestor have a formed world treasure, but he also had two eternal secret codices. With such strength, if Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream hadn't been defeated, the three of them might have been able to fight steadily. They might not have been able to defeat him, but they would have been able to protect themselves. Now that it was 2 against 1, the two of them could escape, but they might not be able to protect the 12th and 7th districts of the chaos. Qin Feng's eyes flickered when he saw the two of them fall silent. Sacred Ancestors, have you heard of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace? Purple Heaven Immortal Palace? Sacred Ancestor Mingu looked indifferent. Clearly, this Sacred Ancestor hadn't been a Sacred Ancestor for long and didn't know much. Sacred Ancestor Lu Guang's eyes flickered. Clearly, he had heard of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace. Sacred Ancestor Lu Guang pondered for a moment before speaking. The Purple Firmament Immortal Palace is a true sage sect in the Yellow Court Dimensional Great Cosmos. It is the origin of the Immortal Tao, and its reputation has spread across the dimensional Great Cosmos. Although Lu Guang is not talented, he has heard of the reputation of the Purple Firmament Immortal Palace. Qin Feng smiled faintly. Sacred Ancestors, you might not know that I'm not only a disciple of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace, but also a disciple of a true sage. What? The expressions of Sacred Ancestor Lu Guang and Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu instantly changed, but they quickly recovered. However, when they looked at each other, they could see a trace of shock and fear in each other's eyes. At the same time, there was also a trace of understanding. The surrounding Sacred Ancestors had all inquired about the Lightning Ancestor's origins. They heard that he had only attained the Tao for 10,000 years. That was why the 3 Sacred Ancestors had joined forces to set up this trap. But if he was a disciple of a true saint, then it made sense. How did his strength improve by leaps and bounds in just 10,000 years? A hint of bitterness appeared in the eyes of the 2 Sacred Ancestors at the same time. After offending a disciple of a true saint, his future days would not be easy. Those disciples of the true saints were famous for not being easy to deal with. Not only did their strength improve rapidly, but they also had great influence. If I'm not mistaken, both of you should be Sacred Ancestors of this chaos era, and both of you are unaffiliated cultivators. Now it seems that the 2 Sacred Ancestors don't have much time left. The chaos era is about to arrive, and the 2 of you have lost your worlds. Your future days will not be easy, unless you hide in an alternate dimension Great Cosmos. But as everyone knows, if you run to an alternate dimension Great Cosmos, you will lose your foundation, and it will be equivalent to starting from scratch. Furthermore, if you encounter a Sacred Ancestor from an alternate dimension Great Cosmos, you will most likely be in danger of dying. The two of you are almighty after all. Although I am not very strong, I am thirsty for talent. If the two of you can join the Spirit Sea Worlds camp, I will be extremely happy. The Purple Firmament Immortal Palace also welcomes sacred ancestors to join us. Can we understand that you are trying to recruit us? Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu suddenly raised her head and looked at Qin Feng. Her beautiful eyes were cold and a trace of disdain. Qin Feng looked at Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu and took in her expression. He was not angry at all and only said indifferently, Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu, you should know the difference between the two of you. The two of you should be well aware of the gap between rogue cultivators and sect cultivators. Both of you have your own trump cards, but you don't know that in the eyes of my true sage sect, they are not even worth mentioning. Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu has the Eternal Frost technique, so you should know how precious the Eternal Secret Codex is to us sacred ancestors. Generally speaking, if you want to run your own business and want to obtain the Eternal Secret Codex, there is no other way except to plunder. But if you join a sect... Qin Feng looked at the two sacred ancestors, whose expressions changed slightly. As long as you make contributions, there is nothing you can't do, including the various mystic techniques left behind by some high-level sovereigns before the various chaos epochs. Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu and Sacred Ancestor Lu Guang fell silent. High-level sovereigns usually referred to sacred ancestors who had survived at least one calamity. After surviving one calamity, their soul realm would begin to transform. Such existences were called high-level sovereigns. Of course, depending on the number of calamities they had survived, they could be called First Calamity Sovereign, Second Calamity Sovereign, and so on. High-level sovereigns were far more powerful than sacred ancestors. The mystic techniques left behind by such existences were undoubtedly extremely valuable. At this moment, it would be a lie to say that they weren't tempted. Qin Feng continued. Of course, if the two of you aren't willing, then I can only rely on my own will. There was a trace of coldness in his voice. Below him, Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream's soul had been split into pieces. Most of it had been forcefully sucked into the space-time gap, and was completely destroyed. Even if the remaining soul was revived, it would only be the weakest kind of eternal sacred ancestor. At this point, Qin Feng no longer had to worry about Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream's recovery. Lightning Ancestor, you can't possibly recruit us, Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu said after a while. True sacred sects are powerful, but freedom is more important to us. As soon as he finished speaking, Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu and Sacred Ancestor Flowing Light seemed to have sensed the change in the situation. Qin Feng was itching to try. Without Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream holding them back, he was confident that he could take down these two sacred ancestors. But in the blink of an eye, Qin Feng suppressed such a desire. There were already powerful existences watching the battlefield. If he insisted on taking down these two sacred ancestors, there would be unexpected problems. He might not be able to take them down, and then he would lose the spoils of war. Rumble! Billions of purple lightning bolts shot into the sky, instantly obliterating the small portion of Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream's soul that was left behind in the 10th region. Qin Feng's figure disappeared. Learning from the previous battle, Qin Feng rushed to the 12th and 7th regions in order to prevent others from getting ahead of him or to prevent Sacred Ancestor Flowing Light and Sacred Ancestor Ming Gu from taking away the essence of the 12th and 7th regions. He used the Golden Gourd's power to sweep the two regions clean. He then rushed to Sacred Ancestor Soul Dream's 8th region. However, when they arrived at the 8th region of Chaos, Qin Feng found that the Golden Gourd had reached a limit in a short time after devouring the two giant worlds in the 12th region and the 7th region. The delicacies that were right in front of his mouth could no longer be eaten. Chapter 1914. In the chaos outside the 8th zone, a figure held a golden gourd and looked at the huge world in front of him. It was a strange world. It was like a hazy darkness that filled the 8th zone. It was a turbid world. This divine ancestor soul dream is amazing. This world is dominated by space, time, and souls. The entire world has been refined into the shape of a river. I just don't know which path he's going to take. Qin Feng thought to himself as he rubbed the golden gourd in his hand. Inside the golden gourd, deep in the primordial chaos sea, the two huge worlds rumbled and turned into essence energy to cleanse the primordial chaos origin energy. The primordial chaos origin energy was assimilating and digesting the seas of the two huge worlds. A small part of it had been completely dissolved. After being cleansed by the primordial chaos origin energy, it turned into essence energy and became nutrients for the 8 scenery world. The 8 heavenly realms and the 8 scenery world were expanding rapidly like balloons. Many new realms were born and new divine realms were born. The new divine realms merged with the new divine realms, forming heavenly realms that were above the divine realms but below the heavenly realms. This structure was very similar to Qin Feng's mutated world. Many powerful masters of the divine realms used this opportunity to merge with the new divine realms and become the masters of their own heavenly realms. This was the so-called great fortune and great opportunity. The ones who benefited the most were the new masters of the Qin family. Although the Qin family's almighties that were born after Qin Feng's death were powerful, due to special considerations, they didn't have their own territory. Instead, in the heavenly court, many almighties became the masters of their own spirit regions and god regions. This time, the birth of the new spirit realms, divine realms, and heavenly realms made many masters of the Qin family see an opportunity. Although the 8 scenery world was trying its best to digest, Qin Feng could clearly feel that the golden gourd was full. It was temporarily full. The current spirit sea world had reached its limit. Qin Feng knew that he had to refine the golden gourd. Cultivating the eternal origin technique was an opportunity to refine the golden gourd. Qin Feng looked at the 8th zone. His eyes flashed as he thought to himself, "Fine, I'll wait until I master the eternal origin technique before I devour the world of the 8th zone." With a flash, Qin Feng's figure disappeared from the 8th region of chaos. At the same time, the changes in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th zones finally attracted the attention of many powerful chaos races. 6 chaos zones were successively devoured by a single powerhouse. The implications of this caused many of the overlords of the chaos zones near the swirling sea to feel dread. For a period of time, the 6 areas were filled with undercurrent. At the same time, the rain of blood in the surrounding chaos zones began to intensify. The powerful worlds of the various chaos zones accelerated the pace of annexation. The more living beings you cleared out, the more destiny you would gain after the primal chaos epoch. Many of the ancient sacred ancients and sovereign lords were aware of this fact. In the center of the whirling sea, in the immortal perfect world, many experts under the command of true Saint Whirling Suo started to move. Some of the sacred ancestors of the swirling sea were already consciously cleaning up some of the massive worlds within the swirling sea. Many chaos factions sensed the presence of the storm. Spirit Sea World, Primordial Chaos Sea. After returning to the Spirit Sea World, Qin Feng did not immediately enter seclusion. Instead, he appeared in front of Primordial Chaos Daoist, who had been waiting for a long time. Qin Feng looked at Primordial Chaos Daoist and said directly, "I understand your intentions. Borrowing the Primordial Chaos Sea to cultivate the eternal Primordial Secret Codex is not a problem. But before that, I'd like to make a deal with you. You don't have to worry. I've never been one to take advantage of my subordinates." Primordial Chaos Daoist was slightly taken aback. However, he was also an extremely intelligent person. In the blink of an eye, he had some guesses as he looked at Qin Feng. "Your Majesty, Do you want my eternal primordial secret codex? After a slight pause, Primordial Chaos Daoist said with a serious expression. Your Majesty, you don't have to do this. I've received great kindness from your Majesty. I'm willing to give you the eternal primordial secret codex unconditionally. Give it unconditionally. Qin Feng's expression changed as he looked at Primordial Chaos Daoist in surprise. Was he worried that he would snatch it away, or was he retreating in order to gain more benefits? Or was he really loyal? Qin Feng narrowed his eyes as he looked at Primordial Chaos Daoist. Primordial Chaos Daoist's expression was respectful and solemn. Nothing could be seen on his face. Qin Feng nodded in his heart. As the first Daoist in the Spirit Sea world, Primordial Chaos Daoist was once the most powerful person in the Spirit Sea world, the teacher of gods. He was indeed not a simple person. No matter what, since he was willing to hand it over, regardless of his intentions, Qin Feng was quite satisfied. Don't worry. Since you're willing to give me the eternal primordial secret codex, I won't let you suffer a loss. The Eternal Primordial Secret Codex is ranked in the top 30 of the 3,000 Eternal Secret Codices. According to the evaluation of my True Sage sect, its value is as high as 2.6 billion immortal spirit points. I can't give you 2.6 billion immortal spirit points directly, but I can change it into a few options. You can choose one. Qin Feng looked at Primordial Chaos Daoist. Before Primordial Chaos Daoist could speak, he continued. The first option is 2 Eternal Secret Codices. They are the Eternal Thunderbolt Technique and the Eternal Vibration Technique. Although these 2 Eternal Secret Codices are ranked at the bottom of the 3,000 Eternal Secret Techniques, their combined value is roughly equivalent to your Eternal Primordial Secret Codex. The second option is an Eternal Secret Codex and a number of other Dominator Classics. I can directly summon the will of the Immortal Net here. You can choose the cultivation technique you like. With that, Qin Feng smiled slightly. Not long ago, the Eternal Wind Dominator had instructed that the Spirit Sea world could directly summon the will of the Immortal Net through the young dimensional tree in front of him. As the central medium, it could directly connect to Feng Yi's universe space-time trading network. Primordial Chaos Daoist's gaze changed slightly. The first option was to directly exchange for 2 Eternal Secret Codices. That was a shocking amount. Now that he thought about it, he already had an Eternal Secret Codex, which he held tightly to his chest. Qin Feng actually offered 2 Eternal Secret Codices at once. The second condition was also very tempting. An Eternal Secret Codex, as well as a high-level Sovereign's Secret Codex. This was exactly what he needed. As an itinerant cultivator, he had almost reached his limit by fumbling his way to the second level of the Eternal Realm, the threshold of the Eternal River. If he had more systematic knowledge, it would undoubtedly be a timely help. Looking at Primordial Chaos Daoist, Qin Feng smiled slightly and said, the second option is to exchange for 3 Eternal Secret Codices. The third condition is that you can add in the Eternal Secret Codex and other ancient books, as well as celestial spiritual points. When the time comes, you can directly use the celestial spiritual points to purchase and exchange them on the Immortal Net through the Celestial Spacetime Trading Network. However, because of the restrictions, you are not an Immortal Net resident. Such a purchase will be very expensive. In fact, if Primordial Chaos Daoist directly entered the Immortal Net and sold the Eternal Secret Codex, he would receive more. However, Primordial Chaos Daoist obviously did not have this ability. As the agent of the Immortal Net in this dimensional great universe, Qin Feng naturally would not let anyone bypass him and sell directly. He would not easily let go of a piece of fatty meat that was already in his mouth. Even so, Qin Feng was already very fair. If he encountered a black-hearted person, he was afraid that they would directly take advantage of the imbalance of information and take away the Eternal Primordial Chaos Secret Codex. Chapter 1915. In all fairness, Primordial Chaos Taoist was still very grateful to Qin Feng. Qin Feng had promoted him to Lord of a Celestial Realm. This was already a huge favor. One had to know that the celestial realms were growing with each passing day. Even an eternal heavenly lord would be envious of this. It was also because of the providence of a heavenly realm that he was able to make rapid progress in the past 10,000 years. He was now at the threshold of the second level of the eternal realm. As for selling the Eternal Primordial Chaos Secret Manual to the Immortal Net, although Primordial Chaos Taoist did not know what would happen, he vaguely knew that the value of this was undoubtedly greater. However, Primordial Chaos Taoist knew that sometimes he had to give up what he needed. If he did not have the strength to match his own, he should not have any ambitions. I choose the third condition. After a slight hesitation, Primordial Chaos Taoist spoke decisively. Qin Feng nodded slightly. Then which Eternal Secret Manual do you choose? Eternal Thunderbolt Technique or Eternal Vibration Technique? Primordial Chaos Taoist's eyes were calm. I choose the Eternal Thunderbolt Technique. A hint of a smile appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. In terms of ranking among the 3,000 Eternal Secret Manuals, the Eternal Thunderbolt Technique was, of course, not comparable to the Eternal Primordial Chaos Technique. The Eternal Primordial Chaos Technique was ranked in the top 30, especially in terms of the use of auxiliary areas. However, in terms of offensive power, the Eternal Thunderbolt Technique combined creation and destruction, and was superior to the Eternal Primordial Chaos Technique. Primordial Chaos Taoist chose this Eternal Secret Manual. If he could combine them, he could produce a more powerful composite Eternal Secret Manual, the Eternal Primordial True Thunder. That would be a truly powerful offensive technique. At the same time, Qin Feng could also try to combine the Eternal Primordial Chaos Technique, and his strength would be greatly improved. Don't forget that he still had the Eternal Origin Technique. However, the Eternal Origin Technique had already been signed and could not be used as a trade. Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. Purple thunder rolled in his palm, and a spinning thunder egg as tall as a person appeared. Qin Feng stretched out a hand and pointed. In the Universe Space-Time Trading Network, a portion of his merit points were directly transferred to Primordial Chaos Taoist. In the Immortal Net of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace, the common currency was Immortal Spirit Point. In the world of the Spirit Sea, the Universal Space-Time Trading Network built by itself was the common currency of Merit Point. After the Myriad Heavens Space-Time Trading Network was connected to the Immortal Net, the exchange rate between the two had been opened. One Celestial Spirit Point could be exchanged for 6 Merit Points. Qin Feng didn't have many Celestial Spirit Points in his account on the Immortal Net. Most of them had been spent on purchasing resources in the competition some time ago. However, there was still a large amount of merit points in the Multiverse Space-Time Trading Network. The Heavenly Trading Network had a lot of income every year. Especially as a god of creation, his account in the Heavenly Trading Network had a lot of merit points almost every moment. In total, it was no less than 100 billion. With a wave of his hand, Qin Feng transferred 8 billion into Primordial Chaos Taoist's account. Such a large amount of money immediately attracted the attention of many gods of wealth in the universe trading space, and the God of Wealth Mansion. However, after tracing the source and finding out the account of the God of Creation, a group of gods of wealth didn't dare to act on their own. They quickly reported it to Feng Yi, the master of the universe trading space. Qin Feng soon received the news from Feng Yi. After comforting her, he didn't mention it again. Primordial Chaos Taoist also condensed the Eternal Primordial Chaos Secret Tome. It was different from the Thunder Egg of the Eternal Thunderbolt Technique. It was also different from the bell formed by the Eternal Vibration Technique. The Eternal Secret Tome condensed into the shape of a jade-like ruler. It was purple and dense, luxurious and full of mysterious power. Back then, I followed the original form of this secret tome and used the primordial chaos secret method to refine the primordial heaven measuring ruler. As if sensing Qin Feng's gaze, primordial chaos Daoist's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance. He immediately handed over the eternal primordial chaos secret tome in the shape of a jade ruler. Qin Feng said indifferently as he rolled up the eternal primordial chaos secret tome. Other than this eternal thunderbolt technique, as for the rest, you can use your primordial spirit to connect to the universe trading network. Everything you want can be obtained through the universe trading network. 8 billion merit points are already in your hands. Thank you, Your Majesty. Primordial Chaos Daoist's expression was solemn as he bowed slightly. He rolled up the thunder egg formed by the eternal thunderbolt technique and stepped into the primordial chaos sea. Primordial Chaos Daoist couldn't cultivate the eternal thunderbolt technique for the time being. He had to reach the 6th level of the eternal primordial chaos technique, becoming one with heaven and man. Only after becoming one with heaven and man could he cultivate the eternal thunderbolt technique. The primordial island regained its tranquility once again. Qin Feng looked at the eternal primordial chaos technique in the shape of a ruler. After obtaining the eternal primordial chaos technique, Qin Feng was faced with a choice. Should he cultivate the eternal primordial chaos technique first or the eternal origin technique first? This thought only turned in his mind for a moment. Qin Feng looked at the primordial chaos sea and quickly made his choice. Time passed quickly. The spirit sea world was trying its best to digest the results of the great battle. Every 100 years, a new spirit territory and deity territory would be born. Every 1,000 years, a new heavenly territory would be born. The 8 scenery world was expanding time and time again. New spirit territories, deity territories, and heavenly territories meant new territory and destiny. Many Supreme Tao experts took the opportunity to squeeze into the realm of the Supreme Tao Almighties. What was a Supreme Tao Almighty? It was only an expert above the Master God level. Similar to the dimensional universe where the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace was located, when there were hundreds of thousands or even millions of Master Gods in a world, a more detailed hierarchy appeared. In the Spirit Sea world, the Master Gods were divided into 3 steps. They were the Master Gods of the first step, the Master Gods of the second step, and the Supreme Gods of the third step. Below the Master Gods were the God Emperors. However, this division was officially abolished. Now there were only Master Gods. The Master Gods of the second step were called Deity Kings, and the Supreme Gods of the third step were called Eternal God Emperors. The experts of the second step, the Eternal River Realm, followed the old tradition. The strongest were called Eternal Heaven Lords. Below the Master Gods, those at the 5th step of the Heaven Realm could no longer be called Emperors. They could only be called Heaven-defying Realm. The Demon God Realm below the Master Gods was also redivided. There were 3 ordinary divine spirit realms, lower deity, middle deity, and upper deity. Above the ordinary divine spirit realms, there were 3 innate divine spirit realms, which were also divided into lower deity, middle deity, and upper deity. Below the divine spirit realms were the upper 5 realms, which were lesser celestial, middle celestial, greater celestial, strong celestial, and defying celestial. The upper 5 realms could be cultivated. If one did not cultivate the upper 5 realms, one could still become a divine spirit, but only as an ordinary divine spirit. Any peerless expert who cultivated the Supreme Tao would have a much higher chance of becoming a divine spirit if they broke through to the lesser celestial and middle celestial realms from the sovereign realm. After entering the strong celestial realm, one could easily enter the middle deity realm or even the upper deity realm. If one could reach the last heaven-defying realm of the upper 5 realms, an ordinary expert would have a chance to reverse the innate realm and directly enter the innate divine spirit realm. 3,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, in the primordial chaos sea, an extremely mysterious force quietly merged into the primordial chaos sea. Chapter 1916. Silently, a majestic force merged with the primordial chaos sea. Countless purple clouds entered the eight sceneries world and countless other worlds. Numerous heavenly domains, countless divine domains, and countless spiritual domains seemed to have been reborn under this force. Countless yuan qi flowed more and more harmoniously. A breakthrough. At the edge of the primordial chaos sea, a gray-robed Taoist was shocked as he sensed a majestic force that surpassed his own in the void. As someone who cultivated the eternal primordial chaos art, the primordial chaos Taoist was extremely familiar with such fluctuations. Primordial chaos was the leader of the billions of yuan qi and dominated countless yuan qi. The yuan qi fluctuations in the eight sceneries world and countless other worlds proved this point. The primordial chaos Taoist's guess was right. After more than 3,000 years of bitter cultivation in the Genesis Shrine, Qin Feng had reached the sixth level of the eternal primordial chaos art, the unity of heaven and man. With the primordial chaos sea and his dual identity as a Genesis god, Qin Feng comprehended the eternal primordial chaos art faster than ordinary divine ancestors. In fact, many divine ancestors viewed the world from a different perspective. For example, in the eyes of a divine ancestor who comprehended life and death, a world might be formed purely from life and death. Heaven and earth were born, all things were born, and all things were destroyed. Everything returned to its origin, and life and death were a cycle. However, in the eyes of a being like the primordial chaos Taoist, who cultivated the laws of primordial chaos, the world might be formed from countless yuan qi. Among the yuan qi, the universe, space-time, and beautiful mountains and rivers were born. Whether it was the birth and death of a world, reincarnation, light, or darkness, they were all changes in yuan qi. After cultivating the eternal primordial chaos art, Qin Feng had such a feeling. The changes in the billions of yuan qi in heaven and earth were all in the realm of his soul. It was a very strange feeling. Qin Feng felt as if everything in heaven and earth, space-time, and even the boundless chaos were an extension of his physical body. He had the ability to transform into a myriad of things. In fact, Qin Feng had a feeling that even if his true body was shattered and his soul was torn into countless pieces like the divine ancestor soul dream, he could easily recover. It is indeed a very powerful ability. Inside the Genesis Divine Palace, Qin Feng's body was surrounded by purple qi. It was as if there were countless purple qi floating inside his body. His true body turned into billions of purple lights, and even the depths of his soul were filled with purple qi. His soul was undergoing a mysterious change. Even more powerful, dispersing and reuniting seemed to have become an instinct. Primordial spirit. Grand mist, immortal body. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of purple. The primordial chaos, primordial spirit, and primordial immortal body were extremely famous techniques in many-dimensional great cosmoses. Once one mastered these two techniques, it would be very difficult to kill them. This was because the Hongmeng god was the god of origin qi. Origin qi was an extremely important component of everything in the world, including the primal chaos dimension. Those who cultivated these two techniques would be able to communicate with the billions of yuan qi. Their souls would be able to disperse into the billions of yuan qi at any time, becoming one with the chaos. Unless the dimensional great cosmos was directly destroyed, they would basically be unkillable. And after cultivating the eternal primordial technique, Qin Feng indeed possessed the abilities of these two techniques in one step. At the same time, Qin Feng also realized that these two abilities were not the only ones he had obtained. The changes in origin qi involved many mysterious evolutions. Mastering one technique, mastering all technique. Qin Feng possessed this ability in one step. From now on, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort when cultivating any secret technique. No wonder the eternal primordial art is ranked at the top of the support-type secret technique. Many high-level sovereigns yearn for it. Its support-type abilities are too powerful. Feeling the countless changes happening in his body, Qin Feng was secretly shocked. In the primordial chaos sea, most of the remnant world essence in the primordial chaos zone 12 and primordial chaos zone 7 had yet to be digested. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Rumble. Large chunks of remnant world essence collapsed. The essence was melted by the primordial chaos sea and transformed into pure primordial chaos yuan qi, which poured into the 8 scenery world. It strengthened the origin of the 8 scenery world, giving birth to countless spirit domains, deity domains, and huge heavenly domains. In almost a short period of time, the remnant world essence that was difficult to digest was instantly devoured by the primordial chaos sea and the 8 scenery world. After being tempered by the eternal primordial art, the primordial chaos sea was like a primordial chaos fire. Its digestive ability was so strong that it was shocking. In the Genesis Divine Palace, Qin Feng's eyes flickered. He could clearly feel the changes. In the previous world of the Golden Gourd, he felt that he could not be more full and had reached his limit. Now, the limit of its engulfment had been greatly expanded. Its digestive ability was stronger and its stomach was empty. Not only that, but he also felt that the power of the Golden Gourd world had increased greatly. The benefits of the eternal primordial art for the refinement of the Golden Gourd world are amazing. If the Golden Gourd world was this powerful when I met Sacred Ancestor Lu Guang and Sacred Ancestor Minggu, they would not have been able to escape. Qin Feng's eyes flickered with a hint of regret. There was also a hint of anticipation. Now that the eternal primordial art was so beneficial to the Golden Gourd world and his soul realm, the eternal origin technique, which was ranked 9th, would be even more beneficial. Qin Feng even had an intuition that perhaps after cultivating the eternal origin technique, his battle strength would be reborn. Qin Feng's figure flashed and he walked out of the Genesis Divine Palace. Qin Feng did not immediately go into seclusion to cultivate the eternal origin technique. Outside the 7th district of chaos, a flowing light flashed outside the Golden Gourd world and a figure appeared in the chaos. Looking at the 7th district of chaos, the Golden Gourd world was like a fetus. A huge suction force appeared in the Golden Gourd world and sucked this huge world into the Golden Gourd world like a whale sucking in water. Bang! In the next moment, the 7th district of chaos shook violently. The Golden Gourd world flew to the place where the void of darkness was and turned into a huge golden world, floating in the chaos. Qin Feng went into the Spirit Sea world and went into seclusion again to cultivate the eternal origin technique. The 33rd district of Chaos Sea, the mutated world. The huge mutated world had been constantly changing for tens of thousands of years. Many divine ancestors had discovered this rare high-level giant world. Very few giant worlds could be connected to the Void Mother Stream, but once there were traces of the Void Mother Stream, such a world definitely had the potential to become a perfect foundation. The mutated world, the Southern Heaven Realm. As one of the 5 super-heavens, the myriad god celestial realm had not produced a divine ancestor in the past 20,000 years, which made many divine ancestors envious. Over the years, the mutated world had annexed many heavens and given birth to many heavens. The 5 super-heavens were growing stronger every moment. However, there was a tough nut next to the myriad god celestial realm, and this tough nut was clearly protecting the myriad god celestial realm. This made many divine ancestors helpless but also extremely angry. Chapter 1917. This was the Pangu Sacred Emperor of Pangu Heaven. The Pangu Saint Emperor was incredibly strong. Many veteran sacred ancestors knew that, in the last Chaos era, the Pangu Saint Emperor had broken through to become a high-level sovereign. However, the Sacred Emperor hadn't done so. The Sacred Emperor was extremely ambitious. He seemed to be constantly scheming and accumulating his strength so that he could overcome several calamities in one fell swoop. At the end of the last Chaos era, many high-level sacred ancestors had died at his hands. Of course, there was another rumor besides the Sacred Emperor. It was rumored that the ruler of myriad god heaven, the lightning ancestor, was a disciple of a true sage. This rumor had been confirmed by many sacred ancestors. If they didn't rely on Panga's power, they might not be able to stop the ancient sacred ancestors, or even the high-level sovereigns hiding in the shadows. In Panga heaven, the glorious encompassing heavenly palace was built at the highest point of the world. From the highest point of Mount Zhou, it could corrode Panga heaven, countless divine realms, and many other celestial realms, forming a ladder of power. It was lonely at the top. Many world leaders liked to look down on the countless world. Of course, this wasn't just because of the desire for power. It was more because power needed to be feared and looked up to. A place like this was closer to the world. Today, the encompassing heavenly palace was livelier than usual. Your Majesty, time is running out. The Chaos-era tribulation will arrive in 40,000 years at most, but the lightning ancestor is nowhere to be seen. In the huge divine palace, one of the two guards, the Wuhuai clan, looked at the Pangu Saint Emperor with a worried look. Your Majesty, we really don't have much time left. On the other side, Bai Jian frowned. The two great gods' divine power seemed to resonate with Panga Heaven's origin, as if the master of Panga Heaven wasn't Sacred Emperor Pangu himself. In fact, this was the case. Few people knew that Sacred Emperor Pangu didn't conquer Panga Heaven for himself, but for his two great gods. Their strength had skyrocketed from the paramount god level 20,000 years ago, and they emanated the fluctuations of an eternal heavenly lord. In fact, they were showing signs of reaching the level of an eternal sacred ancestor. This kind of improvement was simply inconceivable. Only some of the ancient sacred ancestors who were acquainted with the Pangu Saint Emperor knew that the two divine attendants were actually sacred ancestors from the previous Chaos era. However, because they had gone astray on the path of Tao, they had been forced to start anew. The Pangu Saint Emperor's eyes flashed as he looked in the direction of the myriad gods' celestial domain. That matter was extremely important and related to his future. He couldn't afford to lose it. Those who had mastered the Eternal Thunderbolt technique played a very important role in this. There are still 40,000 years before the Great Tribulation of the Chaos Epoch arrives. It will take at least 30,000 years to accomplish that task. The Pangu Saint Emperor looked in the direction of the myriad god's celestial realm. After a moment, he said indifferently, 10,000 years. We'll wait another 10,000 years. If the lightning ancestor doesn't show up within 10,000 years, then we won't wait any longer. The two ancient gods of Wuhuai clan and Bo Jian clan looked at each other and nodded slightly. This was the only way. The two ancient gods clearly understood the importance of the Eternal Thunderbolt technique to that major event. Wuhuai clan said again, also, Your Majesty, the swirling sea has recently sent 3 rulers to sweep through the various regions of the Chaos Epoch. Some of the top-ranked races in the Chaos Epoch have gone into hiding for the time being, but the top-ranked races are constantly on the move. Many of them have already set their sights on the 33rd region. Bo Jian clan nodded. Your Majesty, this matter is indeed urgent. The worlds around the 33rd region have almost been completely divided by the Chaos Evil Gods, the Ancient Gods, and the Creation Gods. The universes of these 3 races have expanded tremendously and are approaching the 33rd region from 3 different directions. The 2 ancient gods looked a little gloomy. The 33rd region had a perfect foundation. This secret was almost an open secret among the various regions of the Chaos Epoch. More and more experts had their eyes on this region. The pressure on the South Heavenly Realm would probably increase in the future. One had to know that there were extremely powerful high-level rulers among the powerful races of the Chaos Epoch and the experts sent by the swirling sea. The 33rd region was gradually evolving into the center of the Great Tribulation of this Chaos Epoch. This change caused the two ancient gods to be both pleasantly surprised and worried. Pangu Saint Emperor laughed. "Don't worry. Once you and I complete this plan, we may have a place in the 33rd region, the 7th region of the Chaos Epoch." The vast Chaos Epoch was filled with desolation. The battles in the Chaos Epoch had gradually spread to this region. The countless worlds around it had all fallen. There had been no lack of fluctuations from battles in the past thousands of years. Many worlds had been buried in these bloody battles. The Chaos Zone 6, Zone 5, Zone 13, Zone 14, and Zone 15 had been swept clean. The flames of war had caused countless lives to be lost, and even the end of the world had come. Many of the Chaos Epochs were broken and scattered. However, once the flames of war got close to Chaos Zone 7, they would go around it, as if it was a forbidden area. It was indeed a forbidden area. Thousands of years ago, the Lightning Ancestor had fought against the lords of the three major Chaos Epoch. He had defeated the lords of the 7th region, 8th region, and 12th region. This had made many major factions in the Chaos Epoch wary. He would rather take a detour than enter and provoke that terrifying expert. Some high-level sovereigns had noticed this, but those who had gradually emerged from the water surface were not willing to enter the 7th region and have their eyes on the Golden World. The news of the True Sages sect had spread with the departure of the lords of the 8th and 12th regions. The benefits of the 7th region were not great. The high-level sovereigns weighed the gains and losses and were not willing to fall out with a True Sages sect. It would attract trouble. 5,000 years had passed mercilessly. The surrounding Chaos Epochs had gradually fallen into silence. The golden world of the Spirit Sea had suddenly undergone a strange change. Around the 7th region, the winds and clouds changed and thunder rumbled. With the Spirit Sea at the center of the 7th region, a huge whirlpool formed. Countless Chaos Epochs were devoured. The golden world of the Spirit Sea at the center seemed to be refined. It became smaller and smaller until it finally turned into a beam of golden light and disappeared. A figure sitting cross-legged appeared in the center of the whirlpool. Countless Chaos Epochs entered his body like a flood, drowning him. The most peculiar thing was that the Spirit Sea turned into a beam of golden light and entered his body through the heavenly court above his head. Chapter 1918. The figure opened his eyes in an instant, and an invisible wave of energy erupted. In that instant, Chaos District 7 seemed to have completely frozen. It was as if time had stopped and only returned to normal the next moment. The figure's breathing was like rolling thunder. Qin Feng tried to stand up, but the next moment, he felt as if he was carrying a heavy weight. He lost his balance and stepped into the chaos. Rumble! It was as if millions of thunderbolts had struck, and the entire Chaos District 7 seemed to have shaken 3 times. Splat! Qin Feng's skin cracked, and countless essence energy flowed freely. He could not bear it and was about to explode. The world of the Spirit Sea is too heavy. Although I have cultivated the eternal origin technique and absorbed it into my body, it is still too much for me to bear its weight, Qin Feng thought to himself, and a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. The world of the Spirit Sea was too heavy, especially after completely digesting the dark void world of Chaos District 7. This huge world was not inferior to a giant world that had survived a perfect world tribulation. He had cultivated the eternal thunderbolt, eternal vibration, eternal primordial, and eternal origin techniques, and his divine body and soul realm had been tempered, and he was comparable to a first tribulation sovereign. However, it was still too much for him. My strength has increased again. Should I take this opportunity to cultivate the second level of the Universal Gourd World Scroll? Thoughts flashed across Qin Feng's mind. Qin Feng rejected this idea. No, the second level of the Universal Gourd World Scroll is related to Tao. Once this level is wrong, I will be on the wrong path. Even if I have survived 8 major tribulations, I will have to reincarnate and start all over again. I still have to wait. Although I have cultivated 4 eternal secret techniques, my accumulation is still too shallow. I need more accumulation to prove that I can get rid of the false and retain the true. Qin Feng's eyes flickered. Next, I should continue to look for new eternal secret technique. These eternal secret techniques are the most profound techniques of the dimensional great universe. They contain the most correct path of the dimensional great universe. Cultivating such a secret art will not only serve as a foundation for overcoming a perfect tribulation, but it will also allow one to raise their strength without any side effects. There's no need to worry about going down the wrong path and being reincarnated. My current strength is comparable to a first tribulation high-level sovereign. If I cultivate a few more eternal secret techniques, especially the other 9 eternal secret codices, my strength will rise to another level. At that time, even second tribulation, third tribulation sovereigns will be nothing in front of me. Another eternal secret codex appeared in Qin Feng's mind. The Eternal Secrets of Order. Countless mysterious information floated in his mind. 5,000 years ago, not long after he had obtained the eternal primordial technique, Qin Feng had given it to Feng Yi. Through Feng Yi, he had directly sold it on the immortal net of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace for 2.6 billion celestial spirit points. At the same time, he bought back the Eternal Secret Tome of Order. At this moment, Qin Feng already possessed 5 eternal secret codices: Eternal Thunderbolt, Eternal Shock, Eternal Primordial, Eternal Origin, and Eternal Order. Among these 5, the Eternal Origin and Eternal Order should have been purchased and signed a non-proliferation agreement. As the seller of the remaining Eternal Thunderbolt, Eternal Shock, and Eternal Primordial, Qin Feng did not need to sign a non-proliferation agreement. Qin Feng used these 3 eternal secret codices as the foundation of the Spirit Sea realm and placed them in the universe space-time trading network. With a wave of his sleeve, a golden light flew out of his body and turned into a gourd. Rubbing the small gourd, Qin Feng smiled and casually hung it on his waist. This treasure refined by the realm was more suitable to be hung on his waist. Immediately, Qin Feng thought of the eternal order in his mind again. Should I continue to cultivate in seclusion? As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Qin Feng shook his head. I'd better not cultivate in seclusion. The Eternal Order is ranked 57th among the 3,000 eternal secret codices. Even if I master it, it will be difficult for me to break through to the second tribulation sovereign realm in a short time. Maybe I can consider going to the 33rd zone of chaos now. Qin Feng's eyes lit up when he thought of the treasures in the depths of that world. Now that his cultivation had improved greatly, he should be able to open the treasures in the depths of the Mountain Sea No. 1 colony. After pondering for a while, Qin Feng waved his sleeve and locked onto a space-time coordinate with his divine consciousness. Eternal Saint Power gathered and turned into a space-time gate. In a flash, Qin Feng's figure quietly disappeared into it. The 33rd Zone of Chaos. An invisible stream of light directly pierced through the mutated world, and a space-time passage appeared in the depths of the Myriad God Celestial Realm. In the depths of the Myriad God Celestial Realm, in the central chaos, a space-time gate appeared in front of countless palaces. With a flash of light, it instantly appeared outside the palaces. Looking at the layers of heavens and divine territories under his feet, Qin Feng's gaze swept across them and was secretly surprised. In the past 20,000 years, the myriad God's celestial realm had changed a little. The number of heavens and divine territories under its control had increased, and its territory had become even more vast. It occupied a quarter of the south heavenly realm. The ones helping Qin Feng manage the south heavenly realm were Pangu's two personal great gods, Jiulu and Songqiong. In his gaze, Qin Feng saw the two ancient gods, Jiulu and Songqiong, in the two palaces in the center that were second only to the myriad God's celestial palace. These two ancient gods' strength had improved rapidly, benefiting from the providence of the myriad God's celestial realm. At this time, their strength had climbed steadily, and they had already broken through the first stage of the eternal realm, the eternal soul realm. Qin Feng closed his eyes, and his divine consciousness surged. Billions of divine consciousnesses merged into the myriad God's celestial realm, resonating with it. Through the divine consciousness, a lot of information was inferred and stored in his mind. This was the information engraved into the past of the myriad God's celestial realm. This kind of information was hidden in time, space, and destiny. Only existences like Qin Feng, who could travel through time and space, could see the information of the past. This information was very complicated and also very large, as vast as the sea. Qin Feng's divine consciousness only selected a part of the space-time traces of the two ancient gods, Jiulu and Songqiong. The 20,000 years of evolution of the myriad God's celestial realm, the careful management and protection of Jiulu and Songqiong, the spying eyes of the surrounding divine ancestors, the deterrence of the Pangu Saint Emperor, and a lot of information emerged one by one. A lot of things have happened in the last 20,000 years. The 33rd zone of chaos actually has a perfect foundation. Is the void mother stream that important to the world? Qin Feng thought to himself. The look in his eyes changed slightly. But soon, Qin Feng's lips curled into a wry smile. Unknowingly, 20,000 years have passed, and I actually owe the Pangu Saint Emperor a huge favor. Looking at the vast myriad God's celestial realm. If it weren't for the Pangu Saint Emperor's protection, this huge foundation would have been taken away by others. When Qin Feng left, he was already prepared for the foundation to be taken away by others. But now, he had an indescribably complicated feeling. The next moment, his eyebrows twitched as he looked in the direction of the Pangu celestial realm. Across an endless distance, an invisible change was born in the direction of the Pangu celestial realm. A chilling, killing intent pierced his extremely sensitive divine consciousness. It seems that someone is trying to kill the Pangu Saint Emperor. Chapter 1919. In the Pangu Heaven domain, the turbid ripples were suppressed to the smallest area. Ordinary eternal heavenly sovereigns wouldn't be able to detect these subtle changes even if they were too far away. However, in the eyes of a powerful sacred ancestor like Qin Feng, it was like a torch in the dark night. He could sense it from far away. The Pangu Saint Emperor's fame has spread far and wide. Although he has yet to overcome a great calamity, he is one of the most ancient existences among the veteran saint ancestors. Most high-level sovereigns would not dare to cause trouble for him. I'm afraid that his protection of the myriad God's celestial realm this time has angered some high-level sovereigns. Qin Feng frowned as he thought to himself. Although he wasn't a good person, he still had a bottom line. After all, the Pangu sacred ancestor had helped him. After pondering for a moment, he looked in the direction of the Pangu Heaven domain. Then, he disappeared from where he was like an invisible stream of light, cutting through space and time as he entered the Pangu Heaven domain. The faint stream of light seemed to travel through space and time, crossing millions of miles in the blink of an eye. At the edge of the Pangu Heaven domain, using the eternal primordial art, Qin Feng looked like an ordinary ball of time. As soon as he entered the edge of the Pangu Heaven domain, Qin Feng's extremely sensitive spiritual senses sensed several gazes looking at the Panga Heaven Domain from all directions. One came from the Annihilation Heaven Domain. It was a completely unfamiliar sacred ancestor. Qin Feng sensed that the Annihilation Heaven Domain no longer had the aura of the Annihilation Army Lord. According to the information he had obtained from the spacetime imprints of the ancient gods of Jiulu and Firmament, the Annihilation Heaven Domain had undergone a great change 10,000 years ago. The Heaven Domain had collapsed under the control of a powerful high-level sovereign. It was rumored that the Annihilation Army Lord had fallen at the hands of this high-level sovereign. The first tribulation sovereign behind the Annihilation Army Lord had been exiled by this high-level sovereign and might have been killed in an alternate dimension. He was replaced by a second tribulation sovereign. This high-level sovereign was called Sacred Ancestor Man Yuan. This second tribulation sovereign didn't seem to notice Qin Feng's arrival at all. The eternal primordial chaos art was incomparably profound. When one's body turned into origin energy, ordinary high-level sovereigns would find it difficult to notice the boundless origin energy and the flow of spacetime. Even so, Qin Feng didn't dare to send out his soul awareness to confirm the identity of the late 10th grade monarch from the realm of Shatter Heaven. A second tribulation sovereign was no ordinary person. At this moment, he could easily banish and kill him. The other came from the Savage Heaven Domain. It's the Desolate Sage Emperor. Qin Feng's expression did not change as he sensed the familiar power in that gaze. 20,000 years ago, when he had just left, the Wildlands Sage Emperor had successfully become a sacred ancestor. He was the son of the epoch True Sage, and his status was something that many sacred ancestors feared. The savage heavenly realm in the southern heavenly realm was the most peaceful region among the mutated world. This identity made countless experts envious, jealous, and jealous. But in an instant, Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. At that moment, he felt that the gaze from the ancient desolate heavenly region that was originally looking at the Pango heavenly region had shifted and landed on him. Have we been discovered? Qin Feng was a little shocked, but his expression didn't change. Although he had been discovered, the desolate sage emperor's gaze only seemed to be curious and surprised, but not malicious. He was able to discover my existence. Even the second tribulation sovereign, Sacred Ancestor Man Yuan, couldn't detect my existence. How can an eternal sacred ancestor, who has just become a second tribulation sovereign, sense my trace? Is this what the son of the true sage emperor can do? Qin Feng's heart changed. He was filled with shock and a complicated expression. Unbeknownst to him, the desolate sage emperor's eyes were also filled with shock. Deep in his heavenly court, an ancient mirror was spinning, reflecting the entire southern heavenly realm. This is the eternal primordial art, one of the top 3 eternal secret arts in the support field. It's also a legendary eternal secret art in many dimensional great universes. I only heard that a sacred ancestor has mastered it. The desolate sage emperor stared at the essence qi that Qin Feng had turned into without blinking. At this moment, if the mirror in his mind wasn't a Tao artifact, he might not have been able to detect the lightning ancestor's actions. How lucky! I just don't know if he's willing to exchange the eternal primordial art with me. The desolate sage emperor's face was filled with joy. As the disciple of the epoch true sage, he had almost 100 eternal secret arts, but he didn't have the eternal primordial art. Although the eternal primordial art isn't as good as the top 10 eternal secret arts that I have, it's definitely not any less valuable. If I can master the eternal primordial art, I can start to merge the eternal secret arts that I have and form a eternal secret art. The eternal primordial art was one of the key mediums for the merging of eternal secret art. It was on par with the eternal chaos art and the eternal space art. At this moment, apart from the desolate sage emperor, a few other high-level sovereigns were secretly observing the battle in the Panga heavenly realm, but no one could detect Qin Feng's existence. Seeing that the desolate sage emperor had no intention of exposing his whereabouts, Qin Feng breathed a sigh of relief. His gaze turned to the depths of the Panga heavenly realm. In the center of the Panga heavenly realm, where the chaos was hazy, 4 ancient figures seemed to be suspended in time and destiny. Invisible collisions were fiercely occurring, but they were silent and invisible. The Pangu Saint Emperor stood in the center, his expression unchanged. The other 3 ancient existences formed a triangle, surrounding the Pangu Saint Emperor in the middle. The 3 ancient existences didn't emit the slightest aura or ripple of energy, but the invisible pressure they exuded made one feel as if one's mind and soul were in disarray even from hundreds of millions of miles away. These 3 are at least 3 tribulations sovereigns. Qin Feng's heart was heavy. Qin Feng had been quite proud of having cultivated several eternal secret arts in succession, but now he felt a new kind of pressure. The 3 high-level sovereigns didn't seem to be from the same race. One of them stood on a 99th grade black lotus. The vast power of destruction formed a black lotus that almost enveloped the entire Pangu heavenly realm. Qin Feng vaguely guessed the identity of this high-level sovereign. This should be a rather famous high-level sovereign of the Chaos Evil God race, the Black Lotus Saint Ancestor. The second person was a high-grade ruler with a ramrod straight figure. He wore blood-red armor, and a terrifying blood-red light flowed behind his back. As it flapped, it transformed into a war banner that obscured the primal chaos and tore through the heavens. Qin Feng had heard of this person before. It was rumored that several eras ago, an ancient saint ancestor who attained the Tao through the laws of war was born. This was the most primitive sovereign of war. His footprints covered many chaotic regions. Every time there was a great war in the great cosmos of the whirling dimension, his figure would definitely be behind it. In many grand world wars in the great cosmos of the great cosmos, this ancient war ancestor had some achievement. He was also a 3 tribulations sovereign. The other one manifested the image of the sun, and his divine power was like that of a giant sun. This was probably a very powerful sovereign of the sun. It seemed that the sun of every giant world was a part of him. The situation of the battle quickly changed dramatically. Chapter 1920. Without a sound, a 9,999 grade super green lotus appeared. Creation Green Lotus? Upon seeing this lotus, Qin Feng was a little dazed. Qin Feng's natal spiritual treasure was the green lotus of good fortune, but after breaking through to the divine ancestor level, the lotus of good fortune had reached the 99th grade, which was the limit, so he abandoned it and gave it to one of his 2 sons when they met. The 9,999 grade creation green lotus that the Pangu Divine Emperor sat on now carried a trace of the power of a Tao artifact. It was no longer the creation green lotus, but the chaos Tao lotus. As it appeared, the green lotus withstood the pressure of the 3 high-level sovereigns. Wherever the lotus passed, the Black Lotus Divine Ancestor's Annihilation Black Lotus was swept away. The Sun Ruler's golden light that could melt the dimensional chaos was disintegrated layer by layer. The Battle Ancestor's Iron Blood War flag fluttered in the wind, and the green lotuses seemed to be dispelling the sharpness of the battle intent that could break through dimensional universes. The 3 high-level sovereigns' expressions didn't change. The Pangu Divine Emperor's Chaos Tao Lotus was famous in many dimensional universes. Stepping on the lotus was indestructible. The 3 sovereigns were already clear about this. Just as they were about to use another technique, the Pangu Divine Emperor's hearty laughter shook the entire Pangu heaven. Today, I have an important guest to welcome. I don't have time to waste with you. Today, all of you will die. Whether it was the 3 high-level sovereigns facing the Pangu Saint Emperor or the ancient existences spectating the battle, all of the 33 zones of chaos shuddered. In the next moment, a majestic ray of light appeared. Seeing this ray of light, countless experts felt as if their spiritual realms were being split apart. Then, under the gazes of many terrifying existences, a huge chasm was torn open. The mutated world, along with the dimensional spacetime, was directly split apart. That dimensional crack was like the vast starry sky being split apart. It was extremely terrifying in the middle. In the chasm, another scene of chaos and destruction appeared. It was dark and gloomy. That chasm extended to other alternate dimensional great universes. The three high-level sovereigns were almost unable to resist as they were directly split apart by an extremely majestic axe light. Ah! Accompanied by a blood-curdling scream, the sacred ancestors watched in horror as Black Lotus, one of the three high-level sovereigns, was sliced apart by the incomparably sharp axe light. Even the Black Lotus protecting his body was annihilated in an instant, and he died in a clean and crisp manner. Next was the ruler of the sun. The blazing sun seemed to have been cleaved apart by an axe. Amidst the myriad rays of light, it turned into a rain of light that drowned out the chaos. Rumble! The battle ancestor roared, and the iron-blooded battle banner transformed into a blood-colored torrent under the attack of the axe light, which then crumbled. The battle ancestor himself was in a desperate situation. His hands, legs, and head split into 5. They turned into 5 beams of light that flew in 5 different directions. One of the head, 2 hands, and 1 leg was instantly shattered by the axe light, while the other leg had indeed tunneled into the depths of the dark dimension universe and disappeared. One escaped. In the Pangu Heaven domain, the Pangu Saint Emperor watched this scene and raised his eyebrows, then shook his head indifferently. However, many ancient creatures were already speechless when they saw this scene. It was as if they had seen a ghost. 2 of the three tribulation sovereigns, who had survived 3 major tribulations, had actually died in the hands of the Pangu Saint Emperor. Only the battle ancestor had escaped with his life. However, the battle ancestor's life treasure had been reduced to ashes. His soul had been split into 5, and 4/5 of it had been destroyed. He was already crippled. He could only reincarnate and restart his cultivation. It would be difficult for him to advance any further. Such ferocity! He can become so powerful without surviving a single tribulation? Qin Feng's heart trembled violently. There was also a kind of extreme eagerness that made his heart beat violently. This was simply too shocking. At the same time, it had opened a new door for him. It turned out that one could become so powerful without surviving a tribulation. However, Qin Feng still found it hard to believe. The Pangu Saint Emperor was actually so powerful that it was unbelievable. He had brought 3 high-level sovereigns with him and entered the alternate dimension's great cosmos to kill them without any effort at all. Unbelievably powerful. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment as they looked at the scene. This is expected. In the eyes of my father, this person is the most likely existence to become a true sage in this multidimensional universe. In the ancient wilderness heavenly region, the ancient wilderness Saint Emperor raised his eyebrows as he thought to himself. Black Lotus, battle ancestor, Chongyang. These 3 fellows overestimated themselves and went to find trouble with this person. They even wanted to kill and suppress him. They simply don't know what they are talking about. But that's right. The place where this Saint Emperor spent the most time is not here. These fellows are ignorant and inexperienced. It's no wonder they ended up in such a miserable state. The ancient wilderness Saint Emperor looked at Qin Feng again with a trace of eagerness in his eyes. After the Pangu Saint Emperor casually defeated the 3 high-level sovereigns, his gaze instantly locked onto Qin Feng, who had turned into a ball of time flowing in a secondary world's space-time river. Little friend, I've been waiting for you for the past 20,000 years. Qin Feng was still immersed in shock when a voice sounded in Qin Feng's mind. Immediately after, Qin Feng saw the Pangu Saint Emperor cross billions of miles of spacetime in a single step and suddenly appear on the other side from the depths of spacetime. Qin Feng couldn't help but feel his heart tighten when he sensed the might of the three sovereigns of the third tribulation. But a moment later, Qin Feng's expression returned to normal, and his state of mind calmed down. I heard that your Majesty has been sending people to search for this junior all these years. However, this junior has been in seclusion all these years to comprehend the mysteries of the sacred ancestor. Please forgive me, your Majesty. Speaking of which, I have yet to thank your Majesty for watching over me for the past 20,000 years. If not for your Majesty, I'm afraid that this junior's myriad god's celestial domain would have changed owners long ago. Qin Feng's expression was grave. You're welcome. The Pangu Saint Emperor laughed heartily. After carefully sizing up Qin Feng a few times, the Pangu Saint Emperor's eyes grew more and more satisfied. How rare, how rare. In just 20,000 years, you've raised your cultivation to this level. You're much more outstanding than I imagined. Qin Feng's eyes flickered. Under the Pangu Saint Emperor's gaze, he felt that he had been completely seen through. Qin Feng felt somewhat gloomy. The Pangu Saint Emperor was simply too powerful. The Pangu Saint Emperor saw that Qin Feng was a little uncomfortable, but he did not care. The Pangu Saint Emperor said again, "This emperor has indeed sent people to search for you over the past 20,000 years. This emperor has an important matter that requires your help. This emperor has been planning for a long time and is extremely important to this emperor. However, it is also an extremely important opportunity for you." Chapter 1921. The Pangu Saint Emperor added, "Of course, this is also quite dangerous." Qin Feng frowned. The Pangu Saint Emperor's sudden appearance and direct mention of such a big matter was actually very abrupt. However, Qin Feng did not reject immediately. He sensed from the Pangu Saint Emperor's slightly joyful expression that this might be an opportunity. Moreover, even if he wanted to reject, he had to figure out the ins and outs of the matter before doing so. Seeing Qin Feng's expression, the Pangu Saint Emperor instantly realized that he had lost his composure. His expression was relaxed and slightly restrained. "This is not the place to talk. Little friend, why don't you make a trip to the Mi Luo Heavenly Palace? I'm just about to pay my respects to His Majesty." Qin Feng nodded slightly. No matter what, there was no harm in building a good relationship with a powerful person like the Pangu Saint Emperor. The two of them turned into a beam of light and disappeared on the spot. Around them, the divine ancestors who were looking over did not notice Qin Feng's existence. The Pangu Saint Emperor's arrival was an extremely supreme divine power that had blinded the surrounding spacetime. They only knew that the Pangu Saint Emperor had suddenly appeared at the edge of the Pangu Heavenly Domain and inexplicably returned to the center of the Pangu Heavenly Domain. In the depths of spacetime around the South Heavenly Realm, many ancient creatures were also frightened by the Pangu Saint Emperor's combat strength and did not dare to speculate further. However, only a pair of eyes were able to see everything clearly. In the ancient wilderness Heavenly Domain, the ancient wilderness Saint Emperor's eyes flickered with a thoughtful look as he thought to himself. Father sent me to this remote dimensional great cosmos and gave me a treasure mirror. He even said that there would be a great opportunity here and asked me to seize it. I originally thought that it was the Tao artifact that was born in the central heavenly realm, but this treasure mirror had invisibly pointed to the Pangu Saint Emperor many times. Now that the Pangu Saint Emperor has found the lightning ancestor and combined with the information that has been coming from the dimensional great cosmos, I'm afraid that matter is true. If what the Pangu Saint Emperor planned is true, then that old man really treats me well. A strange look flashed across the ancient wilderness Saint Emperor's eyes, and the few beautiful divine concubines who were slowly walking over behind him, and his trademark laziness and contentment returned to his face. primal chaos heavenly domain, central encompassing heavenly palace. Half a day later, Qin Feng walked out of the central expanse heavenly palace. As he walked down the white jade stairs, the primal chaos turned into mist that filled the air. Qin Feng still couldn't conceal the shock in his eyes. Thinking about what the Pangu Saint Emperor had mentioned just now, Qin Feng could not help but feel a surge of emotions. The Pangu Saint Emperor actually discovered a newly formed dimensional multiverse. No, although this is a great opportunity, it also contains great risk. Just now I asked Saint Emperor Pangu to give me 3,000 years. I can use this opportunity to improve my strength. Qin Feng's eyes didn't change, but there was a glimmer of light in his eyes. Although only the Pangu Saint Emperor has discovered the new dimensional great cosmos for now, some innately powerful beings have been born in the local dimensional great cosmos. There is no lack of top-notch divine ancestors and even high-level sovereigns. Once the Pangu Saint Emperor intends to open up a new dimension, he will definitely attract the hostility of these beings. If one's cultivation is too weak, not only will they not be able to obtain any benefits, they will also be reduced to ashes. Qin Feng looked in the direction of the ancient void cave. Qin Feng had an intuition that the treasure hidden in the origin of the Mountain Sea No. 1 gathering place was definitely extraordinary. Once he obtained it, his strength would definitely improve by an unimaginable amount. His figure flashed, and a stream of light passed through countless voids and directly entered the depths of the ancient void cave. In the expanse heavenly palace, the primal chaos was flowing. The two great gods of the Bojian clan and the Wuhuai clan looked at the Pangu Saint Emperor after Qin Feng left. "Your Majesty, we don't have much time left. The later it is, the easier it is for problems to arise. Why do you have to give him another 3,000 years? The great god of the Wuhuai clan looked at the Pangu Saint Emperor in confusion. A brand new dimensional great universe that had just been born. The laws of heaven and earth were suspended in the air without a master. Any divine ancestor who captured it would be able to improve his strength in the shortest time possible. Not to mention becoming the master of this dimensional great universe, even obtaining the favor of a trace of its origin energy would be a huge resource. With this, one could definitely soar. One had to know that many masters of the dimensional great universe were high-level sovereigns who had undergone 7 or 8 tribulations. If the Pangu Saint Emperor could monopolize it and digest it properly, he could definitely pass through 6 consecutive tribulations in one go. Your Majesty, I also think that we shouldn't waste any more time. The great god Bojian's eyes were also filled with doubts. In the middle, the Pangu Saint Emperor waved his hand. He looked in the direction Qin Feng had left and thought to himself, "You don't understand. The Eternal Thunderbolt technique has an extremely important effect on the laws of creation that I created. I have always regretted that I didn't obtain the Eternal Thunderbolt technique. No matter what, the stronger this lightning ancestor is, the more advantageous it is for me." Suddenly, the Pangu Saint Emperor raised his head and looked outside the Pangu Sky domain. "A distinguished guest has arrived. The two of you go outside the Mi Luo Palace and welcome the guest in." Outside the central Mi Luo Palace, a stream of light suddenly flew in from the ancient wilderness heavenly domain and arrived in front of the palace in an instant. "Your Majesty Pangu, there's no need." A slightly smiling voice sounded from outside the Mi Luo Heavenly Palace. A white-robed figure appeared out of thin air on the Chaos platform outside the central Mi Luo Heavenly Palace. His clothes were snow-white and spotless. His face was languid, but there was a sense of nobility that was hard to ignore. The Desolation Saint Emperor. The ancient gods of the Wuhuai clan and the Bojian clan were shocked when they saw this figure. Then, they found a trace of shock and surprise in each other's eyes. The two ancient gods were a little worried. This true saint's sun appeared in the dimensional great cosmos of the whirling sea at the beginning of this era for no reason. Moreover, it's such a coincidence that the Pangu sky domain is adjacent to it. True saints had incredible abilities. Although the Pangu Saint Emperor had been preparing and acting very cautiously, the chances of hiding from a terrifying existence like the epic True Saint were very slim. The two ancient gods were doubtful, but the Pangu Saint Emperor had no more doubts. When the Desolation Saint Emperor appeared in the dimensional great cosmos of the whirling sea and happened to enter the mutated world, the South Heavenly Realm, which was adjacent to the Pangu sky domain, the Pangu Saint Emperor had already been suspicious. At that time, the Desolation Saint Emperor had come to the Mi Luo Heavenly Palace in a grand manner for the first time, and the Pangu Saint Emperor had already lost all hope. I just hope that the true saint under the whirling dimension great cosmos won't be alarmed again. The Pangu Saint Emperor smiled bitterly in his heart. Chapter 1922. In the depths of the void cave. His body seemed to have turned into pure purple lightning. The purple lightning passed through the space-time maze, rubbed against the void mother stream, and entered the inner world like a bolt of purple lightning. In the Mountain Sea No. 1 gathering place, the purple lightning landed on Sky Pillar Mountain. A clone went forward and turned into a stream of light that entered Qin Feng's body. At the same time, Qin Feng felt the qi flow into his body, nourishing his sacred body that had been refined to the extreme and his soul realm. However, the nourishment soon disappeared. It's better than nothing. Qin Feng looked at the quaint imperial palace. The origin source in the inner world was extremely thick and contained the foundation of perfection. If he wanted to break through to the divine ancestor level, this was undoubtedly the most suitable place. However, there were also many powerhouses here. Qin Feng turned his gaze over. In the nearby gathering grounds, there were several faintly discernible ancient auras that weren't inferior to Qin Feng's current level of strength lying dormant. Even further away, there were several auras that were far more powerful than a first tribulation divine ancestors. Your Majesty! A soft, pleasant, and gentle voice suddenly rang out, with a hint of curiosity in it. Qin Feng looked over. From a quaint heavenly palace next to him, a beautiful woman who was as gentle as a fairy walked out. A rule that was not inferior to that of a second-step lord surged from her. There seemed to be endless wood qi spreading. It was Luo Chang. It was the young woman who had been reborn. After 20,000 years, her cultivation base had reached this stage. For some reason, Luo Chang felt that the Emperor of Sky Pillar Mountain today was a little different. Although they had seen each other often over the past 10,000 years, the Emperor had always given her the feeling of coldness. However, it was different today. It was as if he had come alive with a rare hint of warmth. Qin Feng glanced at Luo Chang and glanced at her. This young woman who had been reborn was beautiful. However, at his current level, he had gradually lost interest in her. He nodded slightly. In a flash, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared from Sky Pillar Mountain, heading straight for the Mountain Sea origin. Watching Qin Feng leave, Luo Chang felt a sense of loss in her heart. She bitterly smiled. In the end, he is like a saint in the clouds, untouchable. Luo Chang, why are you standing here alone? At this moment, a man and a woman walked up the steps below the imperial palace. The man was valiant and the woman was beautiful, just like an immortal couple. Luo Chang turned around and glanced at her two old friends. After Xia, it was Chunyu Xianxian. These two old friends of hers were just as she had expected. In the past 20,000 years, Queen Xia had been growing rapidly. She quickly became a famous origami. At this moment, her cultivation base was not any weaker than hers. She was the deity king of the 9 wilderness. The 9 wild spirit defense grand art was even more famous in Mountain C1. Many monarchs and gods were attracted to it. The current 9 Wild Desolation Divine King was the patriarch of a large branch of the Xia clan. He was faintly showing signs of ascending to the position of Imperial Emperor. As for Chunyu Xianxian, she was the gray-robed girl from that day. She was the orphan of the Chunyu clan. At this moment, her cultivation base was not weak either. She benefited from her identity as an old friend of the Heavenly Pillar Mountain Emperor. Every 100 years, the various clans would offer various spiritual items and cultivation methods to the Heavenly Pillar Mountain. Aside from the supply, the three of them had also reached the Aragami realm. Queen Xia looked at Luochang with a strange gaze. He had pursued this beautiful companion of his before. However, he had always been rejected. After 20,000 years, he had already lost the admiration he had when he was a teenager. Nothing. Luochang was unwilling to say anything more. In the origin space of Mountain C1, Qin Feng did not care about the young girl who was full of expectations. He was the first to set off for the depths of the origin space. Vaguely, the 9-colored island in the center had already appeared in the depths of the turbid and heterogeneous origin space. This was Qin Feng's second time exploring this 9-colored island. The first time, he was even far away from the 9-colored island. Thousands of miles away, he was sent flying by the protective power of the 9-colored island. Rumble. When he was close to 1,000 miles away, he seemed to have triggered some kind of advancement. An unparalleled 9-colored light brushed through the air. Feeling the surging energy, Qin Feng's expression changed as he subconsciously touched his waist. However, Qin Feng's expression immediately broke into a smile. The golden gourd was a world-class treasure. Could not be brought into the mutated world. The power of the golden gourd was too strong. Most importantly, its essence was an incomparably tyrannical world that had been forged and tempered countless times. Unless the golden gourd was kept in his body. Eternal vibration technique. Qin Feng casually cast an invisible eternal technique. Rumble. A path of nearly 1,000 miles was directly blasted out of the origin space within 1,000 miles. The first wave of 9-colored light violently trembled and was blasted away. With a flash, Qin Feng's figure was like an invisible stream of light. He pierced through time and space and sped toward the 9-colored island. 1/3 of the time, he had directly crossed half of the distance. Rumble. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Rumble. With the first wave of 9-colored light being blasted away, the 9-colored island seemed to have triggered some kind of power at a deeper level. A huge 9-colored tide swept over, covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, Qin Feng only felt that whether it was time, space, fate, or all other dimensions, they were all filled by the surging 9-colored light. The connection between him and the divine Tao laws in the depths of the whirling dimensional universe seemed to have been lost. The divine power in his body was frozen by an even more mysterious power. Bang! A blood fog suddenly flew out from the bottom of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. It rushed into the clouds and turned into a bloody color. Under the horrified gazes of many experts, it enveloped the entire Pillar of Heaven's mountains. In the blood fog, many experts trembled. They only felt that the blood fog had a kind of power that was above the myriad of worlds. Even the slightest bit of it could crush them into powder. The blood fog disappeared in an instant and turned into a hazy, majestic, and surging figure in the imperial palace on the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. What exactly is that 9-colored light? It's actually so tyrannical and terrifying. Qin Feng lowered his head and pondered with a gloomy expression. It seems that the secret of the 9-colored island has a greater origin than I thought. The protective power is already so terrifying. I'm afraid that the core secret is even more shocking. Qin Feng's expression changed. He looked at the origin space and his eyes flickered with intense curiosity. He suppressed it for a moment. Forget it. Since I can't touch the things on the 9-colored island for the time being, I'll just ignore it for now. Saint Emperor Pangu gave me 3,000 years. Why don't I make use of this time to increase my strength a little? Qin Feng's expression changed. If he wanted to increase his strength in 3,000 years, Qin Feng didn't have many options. Cultivating the Eternal Order technique was one of them, but it might be more difficult. 3,000 years wasn't enough. Moreover, even if he succeeded in cultivating the Eternal Order technique, it might not be able to increase his strength by much. Qin Feng thought for a moment and made a decision. 3,000 years should be enough to cultivate one or two techniques that fit the Eternal Secret Codex. The Eternal Origin technique and the Eternal Thunderbolt technique could be combined to form the Eternal Origin Thunderbolt technique. The Eternal Oscillation technique and the Eternal Primordial technique could be combined to form the Eternal Primordial Divine Bell. Chapter 1923. The Eternal Primordial Bell suppressed everything. It was much more powerful than any of the Eternal Secret Codices alone. If he could cultivate the Eternal Thunder Origin technique or condense the Eternal Primordial Bell, Qin Feng's strength would rise to another level in a short period of time. Your Majesty, what's wrong? Your Majesty, are you all right? Just as Qin Feng was deep in thought, Luo Chang, Ziya, and Chunyu Xianxian hurried in from outside. The three of them could not hide their worried expressions. Luo Chang's pretty face was pale. I'm fine. Something went wrong when I was cultivating the secret technique. Looking at the three origami, Qin Feng smiled slightly. After comforting the three origami and confirming that Qin Feng was fine, the three origami left the Imperial Palace after a while. After leaving the Imperial Palace, Chunyu Xianxian looked at the two origami beside her and could not help but say, "Do you think the Emperor is hiding something from us?" Just now, his true divine was completely shattered. With such a serious injury, I'm afraid it's impossible for him to recover in such a short time. Don't jinx it. What's the Emperor's level? So what if his true divine is shattered? His flesh and blood can be regenerated with a wave of his hand. Luo Chang glanced at Chunyu Xianxian with a displeased expression. Let me tell you too. No one can say anything about the phenomenon on the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. If anything happens, don't blame me for being merciless. At the end of her words, Luo Chang stared at the two of them with a stern look. Seeing Luo Chang scolding Chunyu Xianxian, Ziya frowned, but her expression returned to normal after a while. Don't worry. The reason why we can cultivate today is because of the Emperor's teaching. The Emperor trusts us, so we can go to the Pillar of Heaven's mountains freely. We know what to say and what not to say. In the Imperial Palace, Qin Feng's eyes moved slightly as he heard the words of the three outside the Imperial Palace. He smiled gently. Immediately, he began to cultivate in seclusion. Although the fusion of the Eternal Secret Codices was not as difficult as cultivating a single secret codices, it was definitely not easy. The Pangu Saint Emperor emphasized the Eternal Thunder Origin technique several times. This time, I'll cultivate the Eternal Thunder Origin technique first. Qin Feng's eyes flickered. The fusion of the Eternal Source Lightning Art required two main Eternal Secret Scriptures, the Eternal Source Lightning Art and the Eternal Source Lightning Art. There was also a supplementary secret scripture, the Eternal Primordial Art or the Eternal Chaos Art. It just so happened that the Eternal Grand Mist technique was in his hands. His eyes flickered as he stretched out his left hand, and a ball of purple lightning appeared above his palm. At the same time, he stretched out his right hand, and a formless and strange power turned into a gray ball. His two hands controlled the eternal essence and the eternal lightning to move toward the center of his chest. At the same time, he took a deep breath, and then exhaled a stream of violet smoke that slowly entered the center of his chest. The moment the three eternal powers came into contact with each other, a change took place. Bang! Suddenly, there was an explosion, and it dissipated into nothingness. I failed. Qin Feng's eyes flashed, but his expression didn't change. He had never thought that he would be able to cultivate such a complex eternal secret codex in one try. The eternal saint energy flowed through his body as an eternal thunderbolt appeared in his left hand and an eternal origin appeared in his right hand. He began experimenting again. Bang! The explosion occurred again as expected, but Qin Feng had a new idea. He saw some mysterious changes in it and began to adjust. The third time, bang, there was another explosion. Failure. The fourth time, bang, there was another explosion. Failure. The fifth time, the sixth time, the seventh time, the 1,000th time, the 10,000th time. On the 10,000th time, Qin Feng finally found some key points that matched the secret codex. The three eternal powers began to form an irregular tricolored light ball. Bang! But in the end, the three unstable forces tore apart the ball of light. Qin Feng's expression was solemn as he pondered for a moment. Then, he began to try again. The 1,000th time, the 10,000th time, the 5,000th time, the 800th time. After 3,000 years, almost 1,000 years, the three eternal powers finally formed a perfect tricolored ball. Bang! Qin Feng sent it into the dimensional gap. Rumble! The 10-dimensional gaps shook. The precepts of heaven and earth were turned into dust under this power. It destroyed everything in its path and turned everything into chaos. It was a terrifying scene of great power that could destroy heaven and earth. The initial recombination is successful. Qin Feng closed his eyes and felt the dimensional gap. The scene of countless times being completely torn apart. His eyes flashed with a smile. This kind of destruction seemed to be linked. Just like the nature of the Samadhi true fire, as long as there was still vitality in the dimensional gap, the destructive lightning would continue to destroy it until it was completely destroyed. What was useless was the power or the area of destruction. Compared to the eternal thunderbolt technique, it was more than one level stronger. But it is obvious that the initial recombination is successful, but it is still not stable. There are many flaws in the combination of secret technique. Once it encounters a powerful existence, it is very likely to be broken and disintegrated. Qin Feng began to experiment again and optimize the recombination secret technique. Streaks of tricolored lightning changed in the seals in his hands. Get rid of the false and retain the true. Many secret technique structures were overturned and rearranged again and again, until the tricolored lightning gradually turned into a pure golden color in his hand. From the purple lightning to the golden lightning. When the golden lightning landed in the dimensional gaps, it tore through the time, worlds, and space-time in the countless dimensions, creating an extremely large area. It's a success. Looking at the power displayed by the recombined eternal golden lightning origin, Qin Feng finally revealed a smile on his face. Counting the time with his fingers, he found that he had only used a little more than 1,200 years to do so. He casually absorbed the golden lightning that surrounded him into his body and tempered his divine body and soul realm. After adjusting slightly and feeling the changes in his body, Qin Feng began to immerse himself in the comprehension of the eternal primordial divine bell's recombination secret technique. The eternal primordial divine bell was not only a recombination of the eternal secret technique, but also a powerful weapon in the form of a secret technique. Qin Feng was not prepared to refine the eternal primordial divine bell. This time, he was also prepared to use the three eternal powers: the eternal oscillation technique, the eternal origin technique, and the eternal primordial divine technique. 1,500 years later, 2,700 years after Qin Feng went into seclusion at Tianzhu Mountain, an extremely clear bell chime suddenly spread from the center of Tianzhu Mountain. Wherever the bell chime passed, everything seemed to be suppressed. Even space-time stopped flowing. In an instant, a figure carrying a small golden bell broke through the sky and disappeared into the depths of Tianzhu Mountain. P.S. Finally, the ending of this book should be coming soon. If I'm not wrong, it will be finished before the first month. I don't have much to say. I hope that more brothers will read it and support it, especially those who have gone to read the pirated version. This book is coming to an end. I hope that there will be genuine subscriptions. The author would like to thank the many brothers for their support. It is you who have accompanied the author as he grows. Chapter 1924. Qin Feng didn't forget to leave a doppelganger behind to guard the Mountain Sea No. 1 gathering place on his behalf. One of his hands was holding a golden bell with a golden luster. Clang, clang, clang. Qin Feng's eyebrows twitched when he saw this. He had already cultivated the eternal Hong Meng divine bell. With a thought, he could condense the eternal Hong Meng divine bell at any time. Looking around, Qin Feng muttered to himself for a moment. A stream of eternal saint energy blasted out from his palm and instantly formed a space-time gate in the void. Chaos Zone 7. A huge golden world floated in the air, and an extremely heavy aura filled the air. Anyone who looked at the vast spirit sea would feel a great sense of awe. But Qin Feng had seen too much. Not to mention other things, the mutated world was much bigger than the spirit sea world. He waved his sleeve, and a faint golden light flashed. Boom! The majestic golden world turned into a golden gourd and landed on his palm. Qin Feng rubbed the golden gourd. Almost everyone he cared about was in the spirit sea world. He had to make proper arrangements before heading to the alternate dimension Great Cosmos. The golden world was huge, and its main body was a huge world. Couldn't be brought out of the whirling dimension Great Cosmos, and the whirling dimension Great Cosmos would instinctively prevent it from flying out. If it was forcefully taken out, it might even cause a dimensional calamity. The dimensional calamity was extremely terrifying. Ordinary 6 or 7 tribulations dimensional Great Cosmos Masters wouldn't be able to withstand it. Therefore, Qin Feng could only leave it in the whirling dimension Great Cosmos. However, the calamity of the whirling dimension Great Cosmos was about to arrive. If he couldn't return in time, his family and friends would be turned into ashes. Qin Feng muttered to himself. Then, his figure flashed and another doppelganger appeared. It was dressed in a gray robe and had a cold expression. Qin Feng looked at this doppelganger. Every doppelganger had been refined to the limit by him. Each doppelganger had a portion of the divine ancestor's power. Taoist Kong Kong was left in the Mountain Sea No. 1. This doppelganger was Taoist Ling Hai. Taoist Ling Hai looked at Qin Feng and smiled. Don't worry. With me and the Golden Gourd, even if the calamity of the whirling dimension Great Cosmos is, we should be able to. Don't worry. Even if I die, I will take care of your spirit sea. Qin Feng Fun. Take them and hide first. Try your best to buy time. I will try my best to return to the swirling seas dimensional universe as soon as possible. Taoist Ling Hai nodded. With the golden gourd, his figure flashed and disappeared from the 7th zone of chaos. Qin Feng looked around. Following Taoist Ling Hai's disappearance, he no longer had any worries. With a wave of his hand, a space-time gate made of pure white light appeared. Qin Feng returned to the mutated world where the 33rd zone of chaos was located. In the Pangus celestial domain, in front of the central Mi Luo heavenly palace, on the chaos platform, a space-time gate suddenly appeared in front of the surrounding ancient gods. With a flash of golden light, a figure walked out of the golden light. This was a young expert. He was handsome and had dense hair. Even though every single move he made didn't reveal any phenomenon, it carried an extremely heavy and dignified aura. Lightning Ancestor. Beside him, the 2 ancient gods, Bo Jian and Wu Huai, immediately came forward to welcome him. Within the Mi Luo heavenly palace, Pangu Saint Emperor and Desolation Saint Emperor smiled at each other. They stood up from their seats and walked out of the palace. As he looked over, he saw that both of them were people of mysterious origins. With a single glance, they could see the changes in the lightning ancestor. Obviously, his strength had improved. The stronger the ally, the more advantageous it was for this temporary alliance. Your Majesty! Qin Feng looked at the Desolation Sage Emperor walking out of the heavenly palace in surprise. The Pangu Saint Emperor suddenly smiled. Little friend Qin Feng, His Majesty Desolation Saint Emperor will be one of our allies in the future. Brother Lightning Ancestor, we'll be fighting side by side for a period of time. Please take care of me, Desolation Saint Emperor said with a lazy smile. Qin Feng nodded slightly. As the son of a true saint, Desolation Saint Emperor had unfathomable means. He was undoubtedly a powerful ally. Of course, the most important thing was that he didn't have a bad record of harming his allies. Little friend, have you finished your business? Pangu Saint Emperor looked at Qin Feng with a smile. Qin Feng said indifferently, Thank you, Your Majesty. 2,700 years is more than enough time for me to complete all my tasks without any worries. In that case, there's no time to lose. Let's set off. Pangu Saint Emperor's eyes flickered. I have 2 other allies in another place. Let's meet them now. Pangu Saint Emperor looked at the huge Pangu Heaven domain under his command and frowned slightly. Over the years, countless experts from the Pangu Heaven had submitted to him, including countless gods and living beings. If he were to abandon them now, the sacred patriarchs would come and turn them into dust before the chaos epoch came. Qin Feng noticed Pangu Saint Emperor's hesitation. There were many old friends in the Pangu Heaven domain. The gods of the heavenly court and the disciples of the 3 pure ones were among them. Qin Feng saw many old friends, including the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother, Guanghan Dao Ancestor, Great Void Dao Ancestor, Kuan Peng Dao Ancestor, Pure Yang Dao Ancestor, South Pole Dao Ancestor, Life and Death Dao Ancestor, and so on. Desolation Saint Emperor also noticed Pangu Saint Emperor's hesitation and immediately said with a smile, Is Your Majesty Pangu in a difficult position? If so, you can hand them over to me and temporarily move them to my Desolation Heavenly domain. Although I'm not as strong as Your Majesty Pangu, I still have some faith among the divine ancestors. Protecting a domain shouldn't be a problem. Pangu Saint Emperor's eyes flickered. It would be best if they could be protected by Desolation Saint Emperor. Desolation Saint Emperor was the son of the epoch true saint and had a wide circle of friends. Although many divine ancestors were crazy, they would never provoke the son of the true saint. Qin Feng looked at the myriad gods' heavenly domain thoughtfully. Most of his confidants had been withdrawn from the myriad gods' heavenly domain. Jiulu and Sangqiong God had returned to the Pangu Heaven domain, but there were still many divine Dao elites there. The Desolation Sacred Emperor saw the contemplative look on Qin Feng's face. He smiled faintly but didn't say anything. He had taken the initiative to befriend Pangu Saint Emperor because Pangu Saint Emperor had the potential to make him, the son of the true saint, lower his head. Qin Feng was also a disciple of the true saint, but in Desolation Saint Emperor's eyes, he was no different from the other divine ancestors. He didn't have the ability to make him, the son of the true saint, lower his head to befriend him. Chapter 1925. Seeing that the Wildlands Sage Emperor didn't say anything, Qin Feng's expression didn't change. There were indeed some divine Dao elites left in the myriad gods' celestial realm, but most of them were half-hearted traitors. The real elites had already entered the spirit sea world. As the gods of the Pangu celestial realm were moved into the savage celestial realm, there were only 4 gods left in the central Mi Luo celestial palace: Bai Jian, Wu Huai, Sangqiong, and Jiulu. Many powerful cultivators noticed the changes in the Pangu celestial realm. Many hidden ancient existences in the South Horizon region and the Pangu celestial realm sensed the changes in the Pangu celestial realm. Some of the gods in the myriad gods celestial realm, especially, could not help but panic. On the contrary, some hidden ancient existences could not help but look at the Pangu celestial realm and the surroundings of the myriad gods celestial realm. Looking at the limits of the Pangu celestial realm, it was obvious that the Pangu celestial emperor was leaving the mutated world. Although they did not know why the Pangu celestial emperor left, the Pangu celestial realm was undoubtedly a huge piece of fat meat. Without the Pangu celestial realm, the myriad gods celestial realm was also a piece of fat meat in the eyes of the divine ancestors. Everyone present was powerful. Whether it was the Pangu celestial emperor, the savage celestial emperor, or Qin Feng, they could all feel the burning gazes in the Pangu celestial realm. There was no lack of doubt and confusion. In the depths of the void, many divine ancestors looked doubtful. Why did the Pangu celestial emperor want to leave the mutated world? One had to know that the mutated world in the 33 zones of chaos was the only world in this chaos era that had a perfect foundation. Although it might not be able to transform into a perfect immortal world, there must be a big secret in it. The Pangu celestial emperor was willing to leave the mutated world? After the gods of the Pangu celestial realm were settled, the Pangu celestial emperor, the savage celestial emperor, and Qin Feng tore open a dimensional gap and came to a place where time was distorted. The dimensional gap was the gap between dimensional universes. It was filled with existences. The laws of heaven and earth here were distorted and shapeless. Time was completely chaotic, and only a small part of it flowed normally. Some of the dimensional gaps were as vast as a dimensional universe. The dimensional gap was filled with many unknown things. Only beings of the sacred ancestor level could set foot in such a dangerous place. Cultivators below the divine ancestor level would find it difficult to return to their own dimensional great cosmos once they entered. Even if they didn't get lost, they might die in the terrifying secret realms within the dimensional gap. 7 silhouettes appeared in the dimensional gap, and the illusory time flowed around them. It was milky white and boundless, and it was impossible to differentiate between north, south, east, and west. A vast expanse of whiteness. Qin Feng, Desolation Sage Emperor, and Pangu Sage Emperor couldn't manifest the power of flowing time, but Jiulu, Firmament, Wu Huai, and Bai Jian revealed its terrifying might. Traces of being corroded by the dimensional gap's power of time appeared on their bodies. Their faces became old, and their bodies became smaller and more tender. Their limbs became strange, as if they were torn apart. At the same time, there was a pulling force created by time that wanted to tear the 4 of them into pieces. Among the 4 ancient gods, Wu Huai and Bai Jian had already recovered the power of the eternal Lord of Heaven. They could stabilize their bodies, and a gust of eternal holy power circulated, trying to resist the erosion. Jiulu and Firmament were only at the first level of the eternal God Emperor level. It was extremely difficult for them to survive in the vast expanse of whiteness. Within the protective shield formed by the eternal holy power, it didn't take long for spiderwebs to appear. The consumption of eternal holy power was very serious. Cold sweat corroded their clothes, and the strange phenomenon on their bodies intensified. The Pangu Saint Emperor seemed to have the intention of training the 2 ancient gods, but when he saw that the 2 ancient gods could no longer hold on, he shook his head and waved his sleeve. 4 green lotuses of creation appeared and enveloped the 4 ancient gods. The eternal divine ancestor had comprehended his own unique laws of heaven and earth. The power of the laws of heaven and earth could extend into the dimensional gap, and even into the dimensional great cosmos. The mere compression force of the dimensional gap couldn't do anything to the eternal divine ancestor. In the void, Pangu Sage Emperor's eternal holy power condensed into a huge chaotic Tao lotus, which took root in the time of the dimensional gap. The tyrannical compression force was repelled by the chaotic Tao Lotus. At the same time, the chaotic Tao Lotus suppressed and refined the strange forces of the dimensional gap, turning them into the power of the chaotic Tao Lotus. The Desolation Sage Emperor's figure didn't change. A large hole with a large gap appeared, vaguely revealing the image of a huge dimensional great cosmos. It was extremely majestic. It was like an incomparably huge bronze mirror. World style. Beside him, Qin Feng's figure also revealed a huge embryonic form of a world, which vaguely showed signs of a dimensional great cosmos. There were also countless prosperous civilizations, suppressing the compression force around. The embryonic form of the dimensional great cosmos vaguely looked like a gourd. He broke through 10,000 years later than me, but his foundation isn't inferior to mine at all. In fact, in terms of the degree of completeness of his civilization, to a certain extent, he's even better than me. Qin Feng looked at the Desolation Sage Emperor in surprise. It should be known that he had many fortuitous encounters and cultivated 4 eternal great techniques. He didn't know that although the Desolation Sage Emperor's expression didn't change, he was also surprised in his heart. Qin Feng had also given him a lot of shock. Although he had only cultivated the eternal divine ancestor body for 10,000 years, he had returned to the epic true sage's lair in the epic dimensional great cosmos once. In addition, he had cultivated in the epic true sage's Tao artifact for hundreds of thousands of years. He had 4 or 5 eternal secret techniques, and he wasn't inferior to some high-level First Tribulation sovereigns. The foundation of the world that Qin Feng had revealed wasn't inferior to his at all. How could he be shocked? Could it be that the Purple Firmament true sage from the Purple Firmament Immortal Palace is very biased towards him? The Desolation Sage Emperor thought to himself. That shouldn't be the case. According to Father, the Purple Firmament true sage is famous for taking in disciples. He has many disciples in various dimensional great cosmoses, and it's said that he has 3,000 disciples. He shouldn't be biased. 3,000 disciples. No matter how rich the Purple Firmament true sage was, he wouldn't be able to afford such extravagance. The Desolation Sage Emperor's expression changed. At that moment, an ancient bronze mirror in his mind trembled slightly. It's here, the Pangu Sage Emperor suddenly said. In the vast white dimensional gap, a 9-colored door with an ancient aura suddenly appeared. 2 streaks of light, one gray and one red, appeared quickly and arrived in front of the 7 of them in an instant. At the same time, a majestic pressure that far exceeded that of the 3 realms appeared in their hearts. Among the 7 of them, only the Pangu Sage Emperor and the 4 ancient gods under his protection remained motionless. The Desolation Sage Emperor and Qin Feng's expressions changed drastically. They felt as if their bodies were frozen in place, as if a mortal was carrying a huge mountain on his back. Chapter 1926. He's at least a high-level sovereign with 4 tribulations. Desolation Sage Emperor's face darkened, and a Tao realm radiance appeared in his mind. The majestic radiance seemed to fuse with the huge dimensional world on his body. Bang, bang, bang. The formless pressure turned solid when it passed through Desolation Sage Emperor's body. However, Desolation Sage Emperor stood on the spot like an eternal overlord. Tao artifact? The 2 figures flying over instantly sensed the strange phenomenon on Desolation Sage Emperor's body. Instantly 2 blazing gazes swept across. Beside them, Qin Feng's gourd dimensional universe projection was like a small boat in a storm amidst the 2 surging auras. His figure retreated again and again. Clang, clang, clang. At the same time, his face darkened, and a golden radiance appeared on his palm. It turned into a huge golden ancient bell. The bell rang clearly, and the surging pressure also paused. Time froze for billions of miles. Qin Feng's figure finally stopped, and he couldn't help but retreat. The eternal primordial divine bell suppressed all things. This is the eternal primordial divine bell condensed from the eternal primordial divine art, the eternal origin technique, and the eternal oscillation technique? One of the two rays of light flew down and turned into a young man. This young man walked with a majestic gait, and a fiery red gourd hung on his waist. The strange thing was that his hair was as red as fire, and even his eyebrows were long and drooping like golden red flames. Qin Feng could feel an extremely scorching heat landing on his body from his gaze. Even his soul was about to melt under Qin Feng's gaze. Qin Feng had once seen a three-tribulation sovereign of the sun use a blazing golden radiance to refine Pangu Sage Emperor in the Pangu heavenly domain. However, compared to the owner of this gaze, the golden radiance of that sovereign of the sun was as weak as a baby. Brother Pangu, you found two good allies this time. After a moment, the red-robed young man smiled and shifted his gaze to Pangu Sage Emperor. What a terrifying gaze! Qin Feng relaxed. At the same time, he realized that his palm was already drenched in sweat. Is this the strength of a high-level sovereign who has crossed several great calamities? Qin Feng couldn't help but feel a yearning for power surging in his heart. Beside Pangu Sage Emperor, a gray-robed Taoist with white hair and beard landed. He had the demeanor of an immortal as he held a horsetail whisk. He was like an ethereal Taoist. This high-level sovereign seemed to be a cultivator of the immortal Tao. In the multidimensional universe, only one eternal true immortal Tao had been born. Qin Feng could clearly sense an aura of the same origin from this high-level sovereign. I didn't expect that I would meet a fellow Taoist like this. The gray-robed Taoist also felt a trace of aura from the orthodoxy of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace on Qin Feng's body. That kind of aura was very intimate in this dimensional gap. The gray-robed level Sovereign Tao's Immortals, Immortal Realm, Sage Emperor Emperors, Immortal Sage. The two high-level sovereigns had completely retracted their auras. Little friend Qin Feng, little friend Man Huang, let me introduce you. These two are good friends of mine. One of them is the high-level sovereign of the Fire Emperor Dimensional Universe, Ancestor Li Hua, Luya. Luya. Qin Feng, who had been to the Eldritch world, was slightly shocked by this name. Pangu Sage Emperor pointed at the gray-robed Taoist and continued. The other is the Ancient One. Brother Ancient One is also a high-level sovereign who has undergone 4 tribulations. He comes from one of the immortal Tao dimensional universes under the Purple Taoist Immortal Palace. Speaking of which, he is from the same sect as little friend Qin Feng. Pangu Sage Emperor walked over and introduced them to Qin Feng Sage Emperor. These two are new to this trip. Little friend Qin Feng is a disciple of the Purple Taoist Immortal Palace's Purple Taoist True Sage. He also possesses the Eternal Thunderbolt technique. We can't do without him. Hearing this, the Ancient One and Lu Ya's expressions changed slightly. They glanced at Qin Feng and exchanged glances with each other. As the Pangu Sage Emperor's early allies, the two sovereigns knew very well that the Pangu Sage Emperor had always been searching for the Eternal Thunderbolt technique to complete his nomological laws. Seeing that the Ancient One and Lu Ya were looking at him, Qin Feng nodded slightly. Pangu Sage Emperor pointed to the side. This is the son of the Epoch True Sage, the Desolation Sage Emperor. The Desolation Sage Emperor possesses a Tao artifact. This will be of great help to us on this trip. So he is the son of the Epoch True Sage. The Ancient One and Lu Ya were filled with respect. The Epoch True Sage wasn't a veteran True Sage like the Purple Taoist True Sage, but he was also different from the new True Sage like Puso. He had become a True Sage dozens of chaos epochs ago. He had dominated a perfect immortal world. If the Purple Taoist True Sage was famous for the number of disciples he had, then the Epoch True Sage was famous for the number of children he had. However, Even though he had countless sons and daughters, the epic true saint's subordinates were not good-for-nothings. Many of them were famous in their own regions. 3 of them were even masters of dimensional universes. They were masters of 7 and 8 tribulations universes. This person was so young, but he was already wandering around with his Tao artifact. It was obvious that he was favored by the epic true sage. The Ancient One said, "With the son of the epic true sage joining us, we will be even more powerful." The Desolation Sage Emperor smiled faintly. He was neither arrogant nor dismissive of the Ancient One's compliments. It was just right. Qin Feng looked at this scene coldly. It was as if he had been sent to a corner in an instant. However, Qin Feng didn't care. "The time has come. Let's go." Lu Ya looked at the Pangu Sage Emperor and the 4 ancient gods under him. There was a faint flame in his eyes. The 4 ancient gods looked solemn. They stood respectfully behind the Pangu Sage Emperor as if they were his entourage. In fact, they were eternal heaven lords. They were respected in many worlds, but in this matter they were just one of the people who benefited. The Pangu Sage Emperor had brought them along for their own benefit. The Pangu Sage Emperor nodded slightly. He looked into the depths of the river of time. An invisible stream of light surged in his palm. In an instant, a majestic dimensional gate was formed in the dimensional gap. "Let's go." With that, he turned into a majestic gray light and swept up the 4 ancient gods. In an instant, he flew into the depths of the dimensional gate. The Ancient One and Lu Ya looked at each other. Then, they turned into light and flew in. The Desolation Sage Emperor was next. Finally, Qin Feng looked around and muttered to himself. Then, he stepped into the dimensional gate. In the depths of the whirling dimensional universe, in the perfect immortal whirling world, several imposing figures opened their eyes the moment the Pangu Sage Emperor opened the dimensional gate. Terrifying auras swept across countless worlds, causing them to shake violently. It has begun. Chapter 1927. No, they went to the epic dimensional great cosmos. At that moment, the expression of the ancient being in the lead changed. This ancient being had a strange appearance, and a terrifying avatar could be vaguely seen behind him. Behind him, a strange and compassionate demon god appeared. This demon god had 3,000 hands and 3,000 heads, and each head had 3 eyes. On the palm of each hand was a terrifying divine eye. The numerous divine eyes could see through the epic dimensional great cosmos and the vast space-time space. Darkness ruler, are you sure? The expressions of the remaining few rulers changed. A majestic avatar was triggered, and countless worlds of various sizes collapsed. It was a horrifying sight. The Darkness ruler was one of true sage Pesua's disciples and a 5 tribulation ruler. The 4 rulers beside him were all 4 tribulation rulers. One of them had a similar aura as the Darkness ruler and was most likely a 5 tribulation ruler. The epic dimensional great cosmos is the territory of the epic true sage. Even if the Darkness ruler has cultivated the divine eye ability and can see through the universe, he can't challenge the might of a true sage, said a 4 tribulation ruler. He had long green hair and a youthful face. However, he was brimming with vitality. He was holding a wooden staff that was refined from the world tree. The atmosphere was a little tense. Even though the 5 rulers were all disciples of true sage Pesua, it didn't mean that they could spy on another eternal true sage's territory. Don't worry. They are just using the epic true sage to cover their track. They didn't receive help from the epic true sage. As long as we are patient and spend more time, the Pangu Divine Emperor and his group won't be able to escape our eyes, said another 5 tribulation ruler. This was a ruler wearing a golden monk robe. His entire body seemed to be made of gold. He was bare-chested and had a compassionate look on his face. He looked like a Vajra. Behind his head, 5 immortal holy rings rolled and suppressed the heavens. Vajra ruler. A disciple of true sage Pasua and one of the founders of Buddhism. It was rumored that many Buddhism in the epic dimensional great cosmos originated from true sage Pasua. Many of her disciples were the ancestors of Buddhism. In the epic dimensional great cosmos, in front of a remote heavenly way building, 9 figures walked out one after another. Your Majesty! From the majestic building in front of the heavenly profound building, several silhouettes flew down and transformed into silver-armored warriors with powerful auras. These were the experts of the dimensional great cosmos who guarded the heavenly way building. Qin Feng looked around. This was one of the worlds in the epic dimensional universe. In the distance, huge worlds appeared one after another. They were like the stairs of civilization and were extremely majestic. It had a completely different style from the celestial civilization of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace. Just like the ancient era of gods and demons, the epic dynasty was the mainstream cultivation method of this world. As the saying goes, 1 fate, 2 luck, 3 feng shui, 4 accumulation of yin virtue, and 5 scholarly achievements. The Tao of running a dynasty was perfectly explained here. The wilderness sage emperor wasn't just one of the many children of the epic true sage. He was also the ruler of a dynasty that the epic true sage had conferred upon him. The wilderness sage emperor's dynasty occupied many giant worlds in the epic dimensional great universe. Everyone, it's rare for you to come to the epic dimensional universe. Why don't you let me be the host for a while? The wilderness sage emperor smiled as he looked at the rulers. Brother Wilderness, let's not stay here any longer. If we stay here any longer, it will inevitably lead to problems. I know very well that you have many brothers and sisters. When the time comes, they will come with great enthusiasm. When that time comes, I will. Lu Ye shook his head. Qin Feng saw that the wilderness sage emperor's expression changed slightly when he heard that he had many brothers and sisters. He only recovered after a while. Qin Feng chuckled in his heart. The wilderness sage emperor's expression was calm. Since the few of you are worried, shall we not hesitate and go directly to the dimensional great cosmos? No, let's go to a few more dimensional great cosmoses. This time, there are many troublesome fellows following us. The Pangu sage emperor shook his head. The wilderness sage emperor nodded slightly. As the ruler of the Tao realm, the wilderness sage emperor could see far more than ordinary high-level rulers. Ever since they left the whirling dimensional great cosmos, they had been targeted by many ancient existences. Qin Feng was the weakest in the team. Thus, he didn't say anything and just watched quietly. However, Qin Feng felt that it was a little strange. Logically speaking, when ordinary divine ancestors discovered a newly formed dimensional great cosmos, they wouldn't say anything even if they were beaten to death. It was impossible that the Pangu sage emperor didn't understand this logic. It could only be said that some high-level peerless rulers were too terrifying. They might have deduced from some minute details about the Pangu sage emperor and used that to target him. Furthermore, from the Pangu sage emperor's subsequent actions, he had more or less confirmed this guess. The group went to a few more dimensional great cosmoses. Even though Qin Feng wasn't a high-level ruler yet, he could clearly feel that there were fewer eyes on them. However, there were still some extremely powerful existences who were closely following them. Even though Qin Feng was extremely courageous, he still felt a chill in his heart. Being chased by such an existence, no matter where he went, he would not be able to escape. The last stop was the central Huangting dimensional great cosmos. This was the second true sage dimensional great cosmos that the group of 9 had passed through. The meaning was self-evident. Among them, the ancient ruler and Qin Feng were both rulers under the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace. The ancient ruler had a higher authority in the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace and borrowed the power of the Immortal Net. Even the gaze of a true sage could be blocked for a moment. Although it was only for a moment, it was enough to shake off all the tales behind them. Even some 7th or 8th Calamity Universe Masters couldn't find the group's whereabouts in a short time. In the depths of the Purple Heaven Immortal Palace, an ancient floating island appeared at the highest point of the immortal net. On the floating island, a simple and unadorned Tao palace exuded a mysterious and majestic Tao aura. It seemed to be eternal and unchanging, and time couldn't erode it. Above the Tao palace, there were 2 simple and unadorned words with an indescribable Tao aura. Purple Heaven. If Qin Feng were here, he would definitely be able to recognize that this floating island was exactly the same as the Purple Heaven Palace that had appeared in the 33 heavens of the chaotic world. In the immortal net, there was a slight space-time fluctuation, and a pair of unchanging eyes suddenly opened. A purple-robed old Taoist looked sleepy, as if he had been startled awake from a dream. He looked at the 9 figures on the immortal net that had disappeared into the heavenly dimensional gate one after another. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he looked around. In his gaze, in countless distant and unknown space-time directions, in many distant dimensional great cosmoses, many people were looking at the immortal net, trying to see through it and lock onto the direction of the space-time fluctuation. The old Taoist didn't seem to feel anything and yawned. In an instant, a trace of unknown power appeared on the immortal net and enveloped the entire immortal net. Then, he went back to sleep, and the sound of his snoring could be heard clearly in the Tao Palace. However, when those people reacted, they couldn't see the whereabouts of the Pangasaint Emperor and the others. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.